Chapter 650. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Ding gang! The red-clothed martial king roared as he gathered his last bit of strength and rushed towards the giant corpse that had eaten Ding gang. Li Hong's eyes turned sharp as he raised his saber and flew out of the city wall, slashing at the giant corpse closest to the red-clothed martial king. Big brother. In her anxiety, Li Qingling grabbed the city wall and was about to jump down, but Mata firmly held onto her arm. Captain, I can still hold on. The martial kings were infected as they fearlessly jumped out of the city wall to stop the giant corpse from destroying the city wall. However, in front of the tireless giant corpse, they were no longer as difficult to deal with as before. In a short period of time, several people were heavily injured again. Bastard, spit it out for me. The red-clothed martial king's palm struck the back of the giant corpse's neck, but it was like a fist hitting cotton. It caved in and did not cause any damage. Come back. Li Hong struggled to maintain his position under the three giant corpses as he shouted. You still have family. Your home is not in Maying. Leave. The red-clothed martial king's body suddenly trembled as he turned around. He saw a sharp claw piercing through the gap behind Li Hong and stabbing towards his heart. Quickly dodge. Saber King. Big brother, quickly dodge. Li Qingling shouted at the top of her lungs. Li Hong sensed something and suddenly turned his head. The sharp claw was rapidly enlarging in front of him. At this distance, he no longer had any room to turn around. Big brother. Li Qingling screamed and subconsciously wanted to crush the runic formation. At this moment, a sigh came from the sky. All the giant corpses stopped moving at this moment as bits of frost fell down along with the black mist. This is... Li Qingling's eyes widened as she looked at the sky. Her memories returned to her childhood. You wait. Quickly retreat. A familiar voice entered his ears, and Li Hong recovered from his shock. He immediately turned around and brought the red-clothed martial king, who was still in a daze, back into the broken green barrier. Someone from the Divine Hall has come. The voice came from the sky. It's definitely the legendary martial emperor. The martial king standing on the city wall was stunned for a moment before he roared with joy. It was also this roar that caused all the martial kings to come back to their senses and jump back onto the city wall. Whoosh! Bing Feng landed on the city wall with the cage in his hand. He then gently put the cage down. A hint of exhaustion flashed through his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. That scared the hell out of me. I almost missed it. He was scared and waved his hand to dissolve the ice prison. Ma Jintian, who was too thin to be human, appeared in front of everyone. Jintian. Mata's expression changed drastically. He ran over to pick up his son, only to find that his son was only skin and bones. He was terrifyingly weak. He's fine. He'll recover after taking some supplements. You really have a good son. If it weren't for him rushing over, I wouldn't have been able to get there in time. When Mata heard this, he felt both heartache and gratified. He stood up, cupped his fists, and said, You must be the Ice Emperor, Lord Iceberg, right? What Ice Empress? She's just making a living in the Divine Hall. Bing Feng waved his hand, turned around, and looked at the 20 giant corpses that he had frozen outside the door. With a wave of his hand, the 20 giant corpses turned into ice powder and fell to the ground. Li Hong stared blankly at the drifting snowflakes outside the city. Then, he took a deep breath and pursed his lips. The danger of exterminating the camp vanished the instant the martial emperor arrived. So powerful. Was it the next realm he wanted to break through? He also wanted to break through as soon as possible. Bing Feng clapped his hands, looked relaxed, and said, This number and scale are much stronger than Li Ying's. You guys actually managed to hold on for 8 days. You're really not simple. What a pity. The red-clothed martial king looked at the drifting light blue snowflakes with a lonely look in his eyes. Ding Gang was too impulsive. After all, Mata was a man who had seen great storms and waves. He quickly regained his composure, cupped his fists, and said, Thank you, Lord Iceberg, for coming here to deal with the enemy. If Lord Iceberg is not in a hurry to go back, you must let me entertain you. Hearing this, Bing Feng raised his eyebrows, Go back? I didn't say that the problem you encountered was solved. Mata was startled. He turned around and walked to the edge of the city wall. His face became serious again. Bing Feng walked to his side and pointed at the dark sky. You can see that the black fog hasn't dissipated. Do you think that the corpse spirit will let it go? If the corpse spirit was so easy to deal with, the realm lord wouldn't have been alarmed. Speaking of this, Bing Feng frowned and lowered his voice. It's coming. The moment his voice fell, a strange cry unique to the corpse spirit came from the black fog and approached quickly in a few breaths. Bing Feng's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his right hand and said softly, "Appear." In an instant, a huge ice flower appeared in his hand and rotated to the size of the city wall. Just a few breaths after the ice flower was formed, the huge white shadow fiercely hit the ice flower. At that moment, the space where the two collided froze for a moment. And then, boom! The deafening shock wave spread to both sides, forming ripples that shattered the rest of the green light curtain in the blink of an eye. Under everyone's shocked gazes, countless fragments of the light curtain rolled back and disappeared. Li Qingling gave a muffled groan and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Li Hong hurriedly stood in front of her and looked at the scene outside the city in shock. Two deep, pitch-black cracks appeared on the ground where the two collided. They were like natural rifts, bottomless. Was this caused by a human? How could the battle between martial emperors be so horrible? Bing Feng withdrew his hand. His face turned pale for a moment and then returned to normal. However, he frowned and stared at the pure, white, giant corpse outside the ice flower. Its body was snow white, which was completely different from the ordinary giant corpses. It seemed to have the bloodline of Gao Gong, showing its nobility everywhere. Its aura also contained a strong pressure, which was no less than that of a martial emperor. At the corner of its mouth, an ordinary corpse revealed its eyes and stared at the city wall with hatred. Seeing this thing, Bing Feng sighed inwardly. This beast actually remembered him. Last time it luckily escaped. It was much stronger and smarter than before. At this time, the realm lord went to Qingshui Circle and couldn't be contacted. Other martial emperors were in charge of the Baiqing camp, and they couldn't come here in a few days. He might not be able to protect Ma Ying alone. It's really difficult. Bing Feng murmured to himself and turned to look at Mada, who showed a rare look of horror. He sighed and said, "This corpse spirit did not play seriously before. Otherwise, the Ma camp could not even hold on for a day." "Lord Bing Feng, what should we do now?" Facing an enemy comparable to a martial emperor, Mada was helpless and could only ask for Bing Feng's help. Bing Feng frowned and operated the ice flower to resist the white giant corpse's probing. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Do you have any powerful rune matrices? If I fight with it, the aftermath alone can kill or injure more than half of the Ma camp." Mada shook his head and smiled bitterly. The green light curtain is the last means. The remaining ones are only some rune matrices of the 7th level, which are useless. Bing Feng felt a headache. He looked back at the dark sky and could not find any green light. How could it be consumed so completely? In the courtyard, Wu Rong looked up and saw the last green light beam disappear into Su Li's room. She was stunned. It was not that the leader's protective means were weak, but most of the green light beam was eaten by Su Li. In this case, we have to use extreme means. Bing Feng sighed and felt a little regretful. If he had known this, he would not have come with Ma Jin Tian. Maybe he would have lost his life. Lord Bing Feng. Li Qingling walked over and stared at Bing Feng's face, which had not changed much after 50 years. "I am Li Ying's. Oh, it's you?" Bing Feng interrupted Li Qingling. He still remembered Li Qingling. He smiled and squinted his eyes. "Why can I meet you every time the zombie appears? You are so lucky." Li Qingling was surprised to see that he was still in the mood to joke. However, after hearing his words, her uneasy heart calmed down a lot. Bing Feng turned his head around, looking at Mada with a serious expression. His smile disappeared, and Mada's spirit was lifted. "Leader Ma, I'm going to open the field." Bing Feng's first transmitted sound made Mada's face change. "Field? Lord Bing Feng, you You are from Qing Shui's circle, so you know that the field of the martial emperor in our Qimo circle is not good. It can only hold for 2 hours at most. Bing Feng looked serious. Make good use of the 2 hours. Take all the people in the city to escape. Even if ordinary people run for 2 hours, it is enough for them to run to a place where the aftermath can't reach. At that time, I can fight freely. Do you understand? Mata looked confused and couldn't help retorting, but after you open the field for 2 hours, you still, no buts. Bing Feng interrupted Mata and said with a serious face, "Go and arrange it." Mata was full of grief and indignation. He looked at Bing Feng for a long time, and then went down the city wall to pass the order. That's more like it. Bing Feng smiled and glanced at the martial kings on the city wall, saying, "You go too, in case you are hurt and die in vain." The martial king in red saluted Bing Feng and turned to chase Mata. You want to know what Bing Feng and Mata had talked about? I won't go. Li Qingling looked at the ice peak, her hand holding the rune formation. Her voice was soft but firm. I won't let you die. She had no confidence now, or there was only one obsession left. No matter what the result was, she had to try. Silly girl, what nonsense are you talking about? Bing Feng laughed and stood on the edge of the city wall, looking at the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. I am so strong. How can I die? Since you don't want to go, just watch how I trample on this white-haired monster. As soon as he finished speaking, Bing Feng stopped smiling and opened his hands. He shouted in a deep voice, "Snow region, come to me." Crash! A heavy snowstorm came suddenly and instantly wrapped Bing Feng's body. He turned into snowflakes and disappeared on the city wall, along with the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. It seemed that the snowstorm had locked up the small area in front of them. No fluctuations of fighting could come out from it. In the falling snowflakes, Li Hong stood on the wall. He could still see the fight in the so-called snow region through the reflection of the nothingness. He slightly opened his mouth in astonishment. Miracle? The latest chapter of Poisonous Wife, the full text of Poisonous Wife, the download of Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this time. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like Poisonous Wife, please recommend it to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 651. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. It's not a miracle. Ma-da, who had returned to the city wall, walked over slowly. The domain consumes a lot of energy and has many disadvantages. It's not the best way for him to fight. But he has to do this for the residents in the camp. We have to evacuate the residents as far away as possible in order to make up for his sacrifice. Sacrifice. Li Qingling's pupils shrank. My Lord Bing Feng will die. I don't know. Mata let out a sigh and leaned against the city wall. His eyes were filled with worry. I only know that if Bing Feng uses his realm domain for more than 2 hours, he will be exhausted and unable to fight anymore. At that time, even a child can easily kill him. I didn't expect that. Li Hong stared at the back of the figure in the snow region and clenched his teeth. Even a martial lord was not strong enough. 50 years ago, he was only a warrior at the 7th level and could not change the situation. But this time, as a martial lord, he still felt powerless. In the snow region, Bing Feng's face was as pale as the surrounding snow. He looked around helplessly at the vast white domain. Tut, he really hides. Bing Feng sat down helplessly and couldn't help but whisper, "It's really killing me. Why can't the domain we developed be like those practitioners in Qing Shui circle who can control everything in a circle? I can't even sense a trace of the zombie. It's so uncomfortable." He looked back at the city wall and saw Ma Da, Li Qingling, and Li Hong were still guarding on the city wall. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Hurry up. Ma Da, you have to take care of your son. If you die here, what about your son? And you, brother and sister, you finally survived the catastrophe last time. Why do you want to die this time? I haven't trusted Jin Tian to someone reliable. My Lord Bing Feng, focus on the battle and don't worry about me. At least I am here. If you fail, It will only chase me instead of the troops in the rear." Li Hong and Li Qingling looked at each other and smiled. Then they raised their heads with obsession in their eyes and said calmly, "I can also buy time. This time, I won't give up on anyone." "Fool!" Bing Feng laughed and scolded. How could their Chimo circle produce such idiots? Even Ma De, a man of Qing Shui circle who was known for his selfishness, was influenced by them. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed, and the snowy domain had visibly thinned. Bing Feng sat cross-legged on the ground like a statue, but he still did not give up looking for the corpse spirit. If he could discover it, even if he had to bury the snow domain and the corpse spirits with him, it would still be worth it. At this moment, another person ascended the city wall. It was the red-clothed martial king who had returned. When he saw the situation on the city wall, his heart trembled. He respectfully bowed to Bing Feng, who was in the snowy region. "Lord Bing Feng, the ordinary residents in the city have all evacuated from the camp and moved to the rear. The ordinary warriors are also quite a distance away from the city wall." "All right." Bing Feng abruptly stood up and waved his hand. The wind and snow surged up and melted the snow domain instantly. Heavy snow poured down and covered the dark red color of the city wall, turning it into pure white. Bing Feng was gasping for breath, standing in the middle of the snowfield. All of a sudden, something strange happened. Not far behind Bing Feng, a giant white claw suddenly pierced out of the snowfield and was about to pierce through Bing Feng's back at lightning speed. The four people on the city wall were so shocked that they had no time to warn Bing Feng. Alas, with a sigh, the giant white claw froze in the air again. Frost climbed up the giant claw, and soon, the giant white corpse hiding in the snow was completely frozen. At this moment, Bing Feng turned around. His ruddy face was still wearing a smile, and he said sarcastically, "This trick again? It's exactly the same as 50 years ago. Do you think I will fall for the same trick twice? Corpse spirit, it seems that you are not very smart." Bang! The corpse spirit's angry cry came from the giant corpse. Cracks appeared on the giant white corpse. Bing Feng's face changed slightly, and he immediately retreated. In the next moment, the ice on the frozen corpse shattered, turning into countless ice blades that shot out in all directions. Li Hong and the red-clothed martial king were already prepared. They brought Li Qingling and Ma De with them as they quickly dodged the attacks. Swish! 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 The ice blades pierced through the city wall, and the solid wall was riddled with holes in the blink of an eye. The city wall that had stood for thousands of years suddenly collapsed and turned into ruins, revealing large pieces of black lotus stone. Bang! The corpse spirit's voice turned calm. The huge, pure white corpse reared its head back and roared. Then it strode toward the icy peak. With the advantage of its huge body and mass, it was no slower than a regular martial emperor. Just in time, Bing Feng waved his hand, and a long spear shining with light blue cold air appeared out of thin air. He grabbed the spear handle and thrust it at the giant corpse's face. Boom! 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 Two figures, one big and one small, kept flashing, creating deafening sounds. The terrifying collision left one big pit after another on the ground. The two suddenly fell into a fierce battle. Li Qingling clenched her fists and watched the fierce battle nervously. However, her cultivation was too low to see the specific situation of the battle. She could only ask Li Hong, "How is Lord Bing Feng? How is the battle going?" Li Hong's face was tense. He frowned as he saw more and more red lines on Bing Feng's face. In his memory, Bing Feng always had a cold and pale face. He had never seen his face so red. Li Qingling's heart sank. Even Bing Feng, who had killed 20 giant corpses with a wave of his hand, was not a match for the corpse spirit. The high-intensity fight lasted for several hours, until Bing Feng's face turned as red as blood. The ice spear in his hand was a beat slower, and the giant white corpse, who was still in its peak state, immediately seized the opportunity and clawed at his chest. Bing Feng tried his best to retreat, but he could not avoid it completely. Eventually, The giant white corpse scratched his chest, leaving 3 bloody wounds. Bing Feng stomped on the ground and retreated, landing on the rubble of the city wall. He spat out a long breath of turbid air. His gaze was cold as he spoke in a low voice. Not bad. After 50 years, you actually managed to injure me. If you have more time to grow, wouldn't that mean that even the Realm Lord wouldn't be able to do anything to you? Today you will die. Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit shouted and seemed to be laughing. It did not give Bing Feng any chance to breathe and commanded the giant white corpse to rush at the city wall. Bing Feng became serious. He was about to fly away, but his feet suddenly became soft and he failed to fly. Oh no! Bing Feng's face changed slightly. Between life and death, he could not care about anything else. He directly rolled into the ruins and avoided the giant corpse's trampling. Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit could not see Bing Feng. He was angry and commanded the giant corpse to destroy the ruins. Hiding in the ruins, Bing Feng did not dare to move. He took out the carrier rune given by the Realm Master, but found that the light was still dim. Blazing heaven had not come back yet. It had been a few days. Was he really going to stay in Qing Shui's circle for a month? By then, it would be too late. Bing Feng's face darkened. He could not stay in the ruins for too long. Otherwise, when the corpse spirit reacted, Ma De and others would be in danger. He took a deep breath, waved his hand to break the ruins covering his head, and flew into the sky. This time, there were no accidents. Seeing him, the corpse spirit was attracted again and commanded the giant corpse to chase him. Before the corpse spirit completely calmed down, Bing Feng sent the message to the carrier rune again and again, hoping that it would light up. But when the corpse spirit turned to look at Li Qingling and others in the distance, the carrier rune was still dim and had no response. Run! Bing Feng's pupils shrank. He immediately lowered his body to attract the corpse spirit's attention. But at this time, bang! The undead spirit's strange cry was filled with pride. The giant white corpse's head suddenly turned 360 degrees backward and opened its bloody mouth towards the ice peak. The dense and gloomy teeth pierced his eyes, and he couldn't even see the undead spirit that was hiding in them. At this moment, he had never felt that death was so close to him. Bing Feng, danger! Li Hong and others shouted. Li Qingling's heart suddenly shrank. She closed her eyes and crushed the child formation in her hand. She did not know if she could make it in time. But this was the last moment. The last moment. Boom! The courtyard exploded in Wu Rong's horror. It's done. Following the low yet strangely pleasant voice, the world suddenly fell silent. The giant white corpse's bloody mouth didn't come down. Bing Feng stared blankly at the woman in black who suddenly appeared in front of him. His breath stopped for a moment, and his brain finally recovered from the crisis. He began to gasp as if he had been fished out of the water. Just after a few breaths, he suddenly found that the surrounding environment suddenly changed. He looked at Li Hong, who was also stunned, and scratched his head blankly. How did he come down from the sky? She came. She really came. Li Qingling was so excited that she cried tears of joy. As expected, Su Li was not weaker than Bing Feng. As soon as she appeared, she saved Bing Feng. Great! Is that Su Li? Li Hong's pupils shrank when he saw the beautiful figure standing in front of the giant white corpse. He turned to Li Qingling and was about to ask. Bing Feng, who was still sitting on the ground, suddenly trembled when he heard the name. Li Hong felt dizzy, and then he was completely blocked by Bing Feng, who looked excited. What did you say her name was? Su Li. Why? Before Li Hong finished his words, he heard Ma De kneeling on the ground. He blankly stared at the figure in the air and muttered to himself. It's really Su Li. Li Hong finally realized that the name was not ordinary. But Su Li was his sister's subordinate. How could it be? He looked at Li Qingling. Li Qingling shook her head and stared at the two people who were still confronting each other in the air. She said softly, I only know that she is very strong. When my teammates and I explored the dead zone, we found her and rescued her back to the small camp. Later, the small camp encountered the giant white corpse. When she was seriously injured, she punched the giant white corpse away. Because of her, we could successfully escape from a small camp. Otherwise, we would have been killed by the giant white corpse. Hearing this, Li Hong finally understood why Su Li didn't show any respect to him when she first met him. It was ridiculous to think of it now. It should be him who showed respect to her. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 651. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 652. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. In the air, Su Li held the upper jaw of the giant corpse with one hand and fixed her eyes on the corpse monster hiding in the gap of its teeth. "Is it you, little thing, who stirred up a storm in the city?" Su Li smiled and waved her hand. The corpse monster was horrified to find that it could not help floating to the woman in front of it. It screamed in panic, and the giant white corpse shrank instantly. The giant mouth left Su Li's palm and closed again to protect the corpse monster. The exasperated scream echoed in the black fog. Damn it! Damn it! It clearly sensed that the terrible pneuma of this world was gone, so it seized the opportunity to attack. How could there be another terrible human? After the giant white corpse shrank, it became faster and disappeared in the black fog with a flash of white light. Li Hong and others changed their expression slightly. Su Li was in the light, while the corpse monster was in the dark. The situation was not good. Bing Feng was still in a daze, and he looked a little confused. He couldn't understand why this lady appeared here. It was so strange. Su Li narrowed her eyes and looked at the rolling black fog. She chuckled. "Want to escape? I'm not Chitian." Buzz. The next moment, with a gray light that was invisible to the naked eye, her divine awareness covered the area with a radius of thousands of miles. The pneuma of the corpse monster was as dazzling as a lighthouse in the dark. "I found you here," Su Li said softly. She turned over her hands unhurriedly, and pieces of restriction runes fell like black snowflakes. Li Hong finally understood the origin of the unknown shelter. It turned out that Su Li had already taken action. "Look, eldest brother, the fog is gone." Li Qingling's face was red. She was the most excited one. She didn't expect that Su Li was so strong. She was so strong. After a short confrontation with her, the corpse monster chose to retreat into the black fog. Even Lord Bing Feng couldn't do that. Li Hong looked up and saw that the falling black snowflakes could absorb the black fog as nourishment, so that the flickering black boundary could be formed faster. Without the cover of the fog, the corpse spirit screamed in fear when the giant white corpse was revealed. By the time he felt that something was wrong, it was already too late. He couldn't understand why the more terrifying fiery red human couldn't find him, and why this feminine and terrifying human in front of him couldn't find him. Covered by the black boundary, Su Li's eyes were instantly dyed with darkness, which was as bright as obsidian. The evil ghost integrated into her body, and she instinctively showed greed and hunger. It turns out that the creatures of the dead can be eaten. "I'm really hungry. You come at the right time." Before she finished her words, Su Li's figure had disappeared. When she appeared again, she grabbed the head of the giant white corpse with both hands, threw it to the ground, and smashed it hard. Boom! With the black barrier as the center, countless cracks appeared on the ground, and it only stopped in front of the four stunned people. Li Hong gulped and stared at the black barrier. Although he couldn't see clearly, a human could actually throw a giant corpse. Was he seeing things? Right at this moment, Bing Feng suddenly felt a warm sensation on his chest. His communication talisman lit up, and Chi Tian's slightly anxious voice came from it. "Bing Feng, why are you looking for me? Are you okay?" Bing Feng came to his senses, took a deep breath, and said quickly, "Realm Lord, you're finally back. Ma Ying was attacked by the ghoul, and the monster became stronger. I was almost killed by it. I'm on my way." Bing Feng scratched his head and sat down cross-legged. looking at the giant white corpse being ravaged in the black boundary in the distance. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Realm Lord, Grand Elder, Sue has taken action. You'd better continue to help her guard an ice sect. Who are you talking about? Grand Elder Sue? Chi Tion's voice suddenly raised a pitch. Su Li is in Chimo's circle. Bing Feng was embarrassed. It's hard to believe, but I really saw her. Ha 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 ha. I see. Grand Elder Sue, ha ha. Chi Tion's hearty laughter came from the carrier talisman, and then the light dimmed down quickly. Bing Feng patted his head and was speechless. I just said it casually, and you really went to Ni sect again. Bing Feng didn't cover up his words. Li Hong and Li Qingling finally understood when they heard it. Li Hong's eyes flashed, and he asked, Lord Bing Feng, is Grand Elder Sue also the Lord of the Circle? Is she the Lord of Qing Shui's circle? I'm not sure. I only know that Realm Lord and Grand Elder Sue are cooperating. Bing Feng smiled and pointed to the black boundary. Maybe we will have 2 protectors of Realm Lord in the future. Li Qingling blushed and looked at the black boundary with admiration. Realm Lord. She actually had intimate contact with such an existence. Such an honor was so shocking that the battlefield in front of her was no longer the focus of her attention. Mata still knelt on the ground, quietly listening to the conversation of the 3. Hearing this, he smiled. Although the guilt in his heart didn't fade away, he felt the taste of redemption. So it turned out that the chess piece that suffered the most miserably back then, the one whose soul had been scattered, had not perished, but had been reborn and had grown to the level of the blazing heaven realm lord. You're really thick-skinned. Let me exercise my muscles and bones. It's so cool. Su Li smiled brightly. In terms of physical body, the body you drive is no worse than those so-called demons. Unfortunately, you are a great tonic. I'm sorry. The giant corpse begged for mercy. The human in front of her? No, she was not a human at all, but a monster in human skin. She actually wanted to eat it. Su Li turned a deaf ear to it and waved her hand to reduce the visibility of the black boundary. Then her fingers became dark and sharp like the giant corpse. I don't have the divine thunder with me, and I don't have a good sword. I can only use a primitive method to find you. Su Li licked her lips, and her pure black eyes suddenly lit up. The brief and urgent scream of the corpse broke through the sky and then stopped abruptly. Brother Bing Feng, what happened inside? Li Qingling asked nervously. Bing Feng curled his lips and rolled his eyes. How do I know? That was the black boundary set by Grand Elder Sue. How could he see through it? However, it was obviously the scream of the corpse. Grand Elder Sue must be fine. Before Bing Feng finished his words, Li Hong suddenly said, the boundary disappeared. Su Li wiped her lips and turned to look at Li Qingling and Li Hong who were approaching. She spread out her hands full of cyan blood and smiled. It's over. Bing Feng saw the giant white corpse with its belly cut open, but didn't see the corpse spirit. He couldn't help but ask, Grand Elder Sue, the corpse spirit. Su Li turned her eyes and saw Bing Feng. She asked strangely, Are you Bing Feng of Blazing Sky? It's my honor to know you, Grand Elder Sue. Su Li smiled slightly and said calmly, The body of the corpse spirit is very fragile. I couldn't stop it, and the corpse is gone. Oh, I see. Bing Feng nodded suddenly. Looking at Su Li's bloody hands, he couldn't help but feel strange. How could the Grand Elder's means be more barbaric than theirs? Didn't the Realm Lord say that Qing Shui's circle was a group of elegant practitioners? You are Mata? Su Li's eyes fell on Mata. She had a good memory and recognized him at a glance. It turns out that you are in Chimo's circle. No wonder I entrusted Tiny Attic to find your trace, but I only got the result that you and Ma Jintian disappeared together. Is Ma Jintian also here? Holy girl, you are right. It makes me feel ashamed that you still remember me. Mata smiled bitterly. Ma Jintian went to the Immortal Hall to ask for help. His body is too weak to bear the anger of the Holy Girl. If the Holy Girl wants to punish him for his past crimes, just let me be punished alone. Li Hong and Li Qingling were at a loss when they heard their conversation. Uncle Ma was from Qing Shui's circle, and had a bad relationship with the Grand Elder Su? Tut, old ma, you have a strong background. You even have a relationship with the Grand Elder Su. Is it because Bing Feng's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything? Suli shook off the blood on her hands and said softly, "Old guy, your information is outdated. Go back and have a look when you have time. If you really want to forgive yourself, you should obey the command of the Lord of Chimo's Circle." Bing Feng understood the meaning, and his face changed slightly. Suli didn't say much. She walked past Mada and patted him on the shoulder. Then she turned away. Bing Feng stretched himself and held Mada, who was still in a daze, with one hand. "What are you doing? Hurry up and call all your people back. And your baby's son, since you have a grudge with the Grand Elder Su, don't count on him. Fortunately, I have a piece of blood essence here." In the courtyard, Suli opened the door of the courtyard. Wu Rong and others immediately surrounded her. "How is it? Why did you come back so soon? It's only less than 2 hours." Suli pointed to the quiet outside and said with a smile, "It's over. You can go and help. I'm going to have a rest." Then she turned to enter the main room and closed the door. Wu Rong and others looked at each other and didn't know why. "It's over? What do you mean? I don't understand. Let's go out and have a look." Wu Rong was excited and rushed out of the courtyard. Dai Huchuan and Li Dazhuang looked at each other and immediately followed her. The courtyard was quiet again. In the room, Suli sat cross-legged on the ground. With a muffled groan, she opened her mouth and spat out a piece of black blood. The remaining black liquid flowed down the corner of her mouth and was wiped clean by her. "I ate it too fast," but Suli closed her eyes and sensed for a while. The evil ghost's eyes opened instantly. If you looked carefully, the pupils were somewhat similar to those of the corpse essence, and its pneuma had recovered to its peak. Compared with the time when she was in the Xian house, it was slightly stronger. The corpse essence had been absorbed in such a short time. In other words, it didn't need time to absorb it all, as if it was a part of the evil ghost itself. What exactly is a corpse essence? Are there other corpse essences in the Chimo Circle? Suli licked her lips and looked up at the outside. The Chimo Circle was really full of treasures. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time. Chapter 652. You can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 653. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. While no one came to disturb her, Suli calmed down. After solving the crisis of the zombie essence, she finally had time to carefully sort out her current cultivation state. First of all, she successfully broke through the third hurdle of Suiyu tactics. Thanks to the help of the zombie essence, she broke the barriers set by Mada. At that moment, she absorbed enough jade energy and finally completed the breakthrough. The changes after the breakthrough also appeared in her heart at this moment. The third hurdle of Suiyu tactics was Jade Transformation Realm. At this realm, Suli finally officially mastered Suiyu tactics, and its horrible side finally surfaced. Only by practicing to this realm, Suli finally understood why this method could stand out from many mental methods in ancient times and become the most important method of Kuiyu Palace. As soon as she broke through, Suli immediately sensed that her strength, speed, and responsiveness were greatly improved. Compared with before the breakthrough, they were at least 3 times better. It should be known that her strength was no less than that of the demon clan in the same realm, but it was far from the level beyond. However, Suiyu tactics helped her to accomplish this feat, and it was precisely because of this that she was able to crush the zombies in the battle. This fundamental level of improvement was completely out of her expectations, because Black Lotus said a long time ago that her physical body had reached the limit of the human clan, blood sea like tide. Further up was the realm of physical sanctification that only immortals could reach. Even among immortals, only a few people could reach it. Suli estimated that she was between the two at most. She surpassed blood sea like tide, but she didn't reach physical sanctification. However, the physical limit was indeed broken by Suyu tactics, and she didn't feel any discomfort. Moreover, she was the body of evil ghost. After absorbing the zombie essence, the evil ghost became different from before. She didn't have time to confirm whether there were other changes, but she was sure that she had become stronger now. The pneuma of the divine thunder of the five elements is still far away. It seems that I can only ask Qi Tian for help. But since Qi Tian is in Qingshui's circle, I can still improve during this time. Su Li opened her eyes, and her eyes flickered. She had always been cautious. She would only choose to gamble in a dangerous situation where there was no other way. It was not the time to fight with Bai Mo. She had to take advantage of the convenience in Qimo's circle to improve as much as possible in a short time. After the disaster, the Ma camp entered the reconstruction phase. Although the martial artists suffered heavy casualties, under Ma Da's arrangements, the camp was quickly stabilized and returned to the right track. Uncle Ma, actually, other than the warriors, we didn't lose much in other areas. Only the city gate needs to be rebuilt. Li Hong's face was a little pale. His injuries had not healed, but it did not affect his normal paperwork. As for the martial artists, we can only rely on time to recover. Mata nodded and turned to look at Bing Feng, who was sitting on the side, and asked, "Sir, do you have anything else to add?" "I didn't." Bing Feng leaned against the soft chair and said leisurely, "There's a great god in your camp now. Why don't you ask her what she needs? You know, she's your savior." Of course, Bing Feng stood up and said seriously, "He is also my benefactor. Who can tell me where Grand Elder Su lives? I will visit him personally to thank him." Master Bing Feng is right. Mata stood up with a sincere expression. "I'll go with you." After a while, they appeared in front of the courtyard. Bing Feng saw the collapsed house on the side of the courtyard and the fragments of the ruined matrix on the ground. He couldn't help but recall Li Qingling's action at that time. He smiled gently. It seemed that there was one more person to thank. "You're here." Su Li pushed the door open. She wore a black dress, and her quiet and elegant face appeared in front of everyone. "Come in." Bing Feng nodded slightly to show his respect, but he felt strange at his heart. It was hard to imagine that the girl in front of him, who looked like a young girl, could swing up a giant corpse of several floors. That scene was so profound that he would never forget it in his life. Soon, everyone sat down. Su Li looked gentle. She looked at Bing Feng and said calmly, "Since you are here, Qi Tian should have known my existence. Why doesn't he show up?" "Yes, Grand Elder Su." Bing Feng was refreshed and explained hurriedly, "When you left Qingshui's circle, an Ice sect encountered crisis. The Lord of an Ice sect is now holding the fort in an Ice sect, so he hasn't come back yet." Su Li had already guessed it. She asked this question just to confirm it. Hearing Bing Feng's words, she couldn't help but nod. "I will go to meet him in person, but before that..." Su Li looked at Mata. Mata was immediately shocked and slightly bowed his head. "Holy girl, what can I do for you? As long as I can do it, I will do it without hesitation. I have never been a holy girl. You know that." Su Li shook her head. "There's indeed one thing that I need your help with." "Holy, Grand Elder Su, you are exaggerating." Seeing that Su Li's attitude was so peaceful, Ma Da was flattered and said, "It's my honor to help you." Su Li showed a faint smile. "I will help you cure Ma Jintian's injury." Ma Da's magic treasure helped her to break through successfully. She helped Ma Da deal with the zombie, so they were even. As for Reincarnation Mirror, the initiator was White Demon. Strictly speaking, Ma Da and others were just pawns, so there was no need to make things difficult for them. Now, Ma Da used the force of the whole city to collect black lotus stones, which was several times more efficient than her. Of course, she had to give something in return. Ma Da naturally didn't know the reason, so he was greatly moved and burst into tears in excitement. "Grand Elder Su, I feel guilty." Bing Feng didn't understand the ins and outs, but when he saw Ma Da's appearance, he couldn't help but feel sad. He cupped his hands to Su Li and left the room directly, leaving the space for them. Su Li quietly watched Ma Da crying and didn't say a word. When Ma Da calmed down a little, she said, Let bygones be bygones. Don't worry about it. What kind of magic treasure is the green barrier you took out a few days ago? Mata was redeemed at this moment, and his whole face was glowing. Although the corners of his eyes were still red, it didn't prevent him from answering Su Li. That is the remnant of Tianhe tripod. Tianhe. Su Li's eyes flashed with a touch of understanding. Then your identity? Mata smiled bitterly. On the surface, I was a talent of an ordinary holy sect, but secretly, I was a spy of Tianhe's sect. There are many people like me who were planted by Tianhe's sect. At that time, I received an order and entered the reincarnation mirror with my son with the secret help of Tianhe's sect. The purpose was not for you, but to find the remnant of the treasured Tianhe tripod. Later, after we escaped, we found that we were in Chimo Circle. Su Li nodded gently and thought about it. At this time, Mata seemed to have made up his mind and lowered his voice. Grand Elder Su, I don't know how much you know about Tianhe's sect, but Tianhe's sect is definitely not as simple as it looks on the surface. I was just an ordinary servant in Tianhe's sect. I accidentally saw something I shouldn't see, and then I fell unconscious. When I woke up, I found that my talent had reached the level of talent. I was overjoyed and worked hard to cultivate to the level of Little Holy Sun. When I was about to fight for the position of Holy Sun, I was suddenly secretly arranged to be a spy of other holy sections. Later, I knew that my talent and cultivation were exchanged for my lifespan. Mata pointed to his face. Now, I am only 3,000 years old, and my cultivation has reached Huashan realm. No matter what, I should not be so old. Tianhe's sect has the means to turn the rotten into the magical, so they must have planted spies in other holy sections. What they want is not small. Grand Elder Su, you should also be careful. Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly. Her understanding of Tianhe's sect was limited to the description of Feng Yuan and Tainik Attic. Because of Feng Yuan, she had no contact with Tianhe's sect, but she didn't feel bad about it. But now after hearing Mata's words, she realized that she was careless. In Ni's sect, Su Mu and Su Yang were from Tianhe's sect. The relationship between them showed that they were both enemies and friends. It was very clear that something was wrong, but she had always ignored it. I will pay attention to this matter. Let's not mention it for the time being. Putting away her thoughts, Su Li's expression returned to normal. It may take a lot of manpower to get what I want. Time is pressing. Let's arrange it first. After a while, Li Hong looked strangely at the warriors of all levels who were summoned by him. Now I have an urgent task for you, which is of great importance. This group of warriors have been unable to help because of the previous disaster, and they were almost suffocated. At this moment, when they were summoned, they immediately shouted, "Lord of the Saber King, what do you want us to do? Just tell us. As long as we can help, we will not hesitate to go through fire and water. We will not hesitate to help." Under the excitement of the crowd, Li Hong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Please collect the stones, just the one in my hand. It's better to get a whole one, the bigger the better." Li Hong took out a black lotus stone, and the warriors suddenly became silent and stared at each other. Wasn't this the most common black stone in Chimo Circle? Did he ask them to gather here to carry the stones? Seeing that the crowd was restless, Li Hong immediately added, "You also know that if Lord Su Li didn't help us at the critical moment, our Ma camp would have been destroyed. At this moment, she wants to use these black stones for a special purpose, and it's the time when she needs you. This is not an ordinary task. I want you to collect as many black stones as possible in the shortest time. Can you do it?" As soon as these words came out, the dissatisfaction in everyone's eyes instantly disappeared and turned into fighting spirit. "Brothers, let's go. We must dig the biggest one for Lord Su Li. Go, go, go. Go to the dead zone to dig. The zombies are all dead, so the dead zone is safe. Let's take a risk and dig in the depths of the dead zone, where the black stones are the purest. For Lord Su Li, let's go. Go, go, go." In the blink of an eye, all the warriors who gathered here went away. Li Hong was stunned for a moment, and then showed a big, bright smile. Grateful and grateful. These were the warriors of Chimo Circle. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time. Chapter 653, Grateful and Grateful. You can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 654. The next day, Suli received a large number of black lotus stones from Mata, which were needed for her practice. Naturally, she changed her residence to a palace on the upper level of the mountain city. Although the palace didn't look big, the space inside was widened enough to accommodate several mountain cities. Space belonged to the simple use of immortals. This was the result after Bang Feng communicated with Qitian. For now, Su Li's strength was beneficial to him. Only by defeating Bai Mo could he talk about the future of Qimo's circle. In the huge palace, Su Li quietly looked at the hills piled up by black lotus stones, and she looked relaxed for a moment. With the support of the entire camp, the time to develop the transforming sword was shortened by 90%. Maybe it would take her less than a month to develop the magical power completely. The only regret was that her 18th grade Lotus platform lacked the 6th grade Lotus core, so she could only develop the 12th grade magic sword. This time, her cultivation recovered, and the connection with the perfect chakra was clearer. It seemed to stay in one place and didn't move. Her pneuma was so stable that it didn't seem to be integrated by the divine thunder of the 5 elements. It wouldn't be too late to look for it after she developed the transforming sword. Thinking of this, Su Li sat cross-legged in the first pile of black lotus stones and slowly closed her eyes. The whole hall fell into silence. At this moment, in front of the mountain gate of Tianhe Holy Sect in Qingshui Circle, the mountain-protecting tactical matrix rippled, and a slender figure appeared. Fan Yuan looked solemn. He still wore the black robe of casual practitioners, but his beard and hair had been cleaned. It seemed that he had recovered a little spirit. Eldest brother. At the moment when he appeared, Grazing Mu, who was practicing in seclusion in the Saint Temple, suddenly felt something. He suddenly opened his eyes, waved his sleeves to open the gate, and walked to the mountain gate. In front of the mountain gate, Fan Yuan looked up at the top of the mountain towering into the clouds and was about to step up. Suddenly, a gray-clothed old servant with an old face appeared in front of him and bowed. First Holy Son, you are back. Fan Yuan frowned faintly, but he was not surprised. He nodded and said, Old Ancestor sent you here? The gray-clothed old servant squinted his eyes with a smile and said, First Holy Son, the Old Ancestor invites you. Fan Yuan glanced at the familiar pneuma that was approaching quickly and said in a calm tone, Let's go. In the sky, Fang Mu's figure stopped abruptly. He stood in the air and stared at the empty mountain gate, as if the 2 figures he just saw were just illusions. Uncle Chun, a thought hidden in the depths of Fang Mu's awareness, quietly surfaced. Maybe you haven't come into contact with a real Tianhe sect. Fang Mu's eyes darkened, and he fell into silence. In the secret place, in front of the regular and towering stone hall, Fan Yuan raised his head and glanced at the sky that suddenly dimmed. He had been here countless times, but ever since the bloody catastrophe of the Holy Spirit, he had only been here once. This was the second time. Following Fan Yuan into the stone hall, he felt a breath of vitality. It was familiar and strong, so strong that Fan Yuan had goosebumps on his back. He used to like the aura here until he vaguely guessed the source of the vitality. Ever since Her Highness ran away from home, the ancestor has often asked about you. The gray-clothed old servant led the way in front and looked back from time to time with a smile. In the quiet passage, the greeting of the gray-clothed old servant was more like a horrible spell, extremely gloomy. Fan Yuan chose to remain silent until he walked to the door of the inner hall. The gray-clothed old servant stopped on one side and lowered his head. Fan Yuan glanced at him and reached out to open the door a little. Whoosh! The life force that was so dense that it made one's hair stand on end leaked out from the cracks, almost suffocating him. He held his breath and glanced at the gray-clothed old servant who was silently breathing deeply. He did not hesitate to walk into the hall and close the door. Bang! The sound of the collision echoed in the hall. Countless black lines like blood vessels lit up as if they were frightened, and the hall was illuminated with blood red. But soon, this blood red color dimmed, and the hall fell into darkness again. Feng Yuan followed his memory and walked into the center of the hall. His eyes fell straight on the throne that was more like a coffin with blood-red color in the dark. An intermittent voice came from the throne. Outer appearance such. Have you played enough? Feng Yuan's expression remained unchanged. He bowed his head and said, Old ancestor, now there are several major changes in the general trend of Qing Shui circle. Old ancestor, your insistence may also change. Crack. A clear cracking sound came from the throne, and then Feng Yuan heard that the voice of the old ancestor became much more coherent. What changes? Feng Yuan clenched his fists in his sleeves and tried to make himself not nervous. He said in a steady tone, Someone resisted the Fate Palace. Her name is Su Jiuzhou. She led the Ni sect to win the first place and was favored by the natural law. She got in touch with the Qimo Circle and suppressed the Fate Palace with blazing sky. She made the 27 holy sects surrender and gathered the practitioners' army. Speaking of this, Feng Yuan paused and raised his voice a little. I see hope. This time, there were more cracks in the throne. After a long silence, a voice came out. What hope? Feng Yuan stretched out his hand and pointed between his eyebrows. A shadow of a picture scroll was pulled out and then quickly solidified. This was the fake treasure of Tianhe's sect, Tianhe. The Milky Way, which didn't show any spirituality in the outside world, seemed to be alive in this special stone hall. It twisted unwillingly in Feng Yuan's hands, like a flat, long snake, with a feeling of greasy. Without your method, we can also move the Fate Palace, defeat Bai Mo, and save Qing Shui's circle. Crack, crack, crack. As soon as the voice fell, Feng Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. He saw 3 ferocious and huge cracks on the surface of the black throne, as if the throne would completely collapse in the next moment. I have been painstakingly planning for this for thousands of years. Do you want to give up? The voice in the throne was calm and coherent without any anger. Feng Yuan felt cold all over as if he fell into an ice cellar, and his lips began to turn white. The power of the great emperor. After seeing blazing sky and Ni sect and angering the old ancestor, he could finally confirm that the old ancestor was also a great emperor. Tianhe's sect was protected by a great emperor. No wonder that the Fate ancestor had always been full of fear of Tianhe's sect after eroding the 3 saint sects and didn't even test it. Was this the tacit understanding between the 2 great emperors? Since the old ancestor was a great emperor, why didn't he stand up and fight against Bai Mo with Qing Shui Palace? At this moment, Feng Yuan thought a lot. He deliberated for a moment and said under great pressure, It's not giving up. It's just one more way. Isn't it good? Huh. The laughter came from the throne. In a hall that was sometimes dim and sometimes bloody red, it was full of inexplicable meaning. Feng Yuan, why do you try your best to help that person and even have the courage to confront me? Feng Yuan held his breath and heard the old ancestor continued. Let me guess. Although you value affection, you rarely fall in love with outsiders. Except for the chess piece Su Li 1,000 years ago, Su Jiuzhou, the Grand Elder of an Ni sect? Perhaps even you haven't realized that everything you do now has the shadow of Su Jiuzhou. Feng Yuan was shocked and opened his mouth to refute, but he didn't know what to say. He really didn't know why he was impulsive. Was it really because Su Jiuzhou used some means on him? No, that's not it. It was only because he saw a way for him to take revenge without harming the innocent. Old ancestor. Feng Yuan's tone was low. What you're doing now, is there any difference between what you're doing and Bai Mo's? I sacrificed myself for the greater good. The cracks on the black throne slowly disappeared. If you want to accomplish something, you must pay the price. You are too naive. Maybe the destruction of Ni sect will make you sober. Old ancestor. Fang Yuan's face suddenly changed. What do you want to do? Two balls of ghost fire lit up in the throne with a little warning. I'm not so idle to kill an ant. Go down and return to your position. When you think clearly, come to me. Next time, I don't want to hear anything about an eye sect from you. Fang Yuan wanted to ask again, but his body faded uncontrollably and disappeared completely in a few breaths. The hall returned to silence. After a long time, the gray-clothed old servant opened the door and bowed in. He lowered his head and asked softly, Master, you said that he is the son with the closest bloodline among your descendants. Why don't you tell him the truth? The truth? What is the truth? The gray-clothed old servant lowered his head even more. For example, Su Jiuzhou is Su Li. Oh, the descendants of the undead clan are not so easy to die, just like her mother. The gray-clothed old servant bent his body and listened quietly, as if he heard nothing. The hall of an eye sect was still so simple and elegant, with the smell of tranquilizing sandalwood. Yin Zai came in from outside the door and saw Hua, Yin sitting alone at the long conference table. She stared blankly at the nothingness. Sister Hua? Yin Zai came and sat down in confusion. He asked softly, What's wrong with you? Hua Yin forced a smile. I'm just a little uneasy. I don't know what I'm worried about. Do you also have this feeling? Yin Zai looked slightly serious and lowered his voice subconsciously. I thought it was an illusion, but now Ancestor Blazing Sky is in charge of an eye sect, and Master's whereabouts have been found. What danger can there be? It's dangerous because I can't think of it. Hua Yin stopped smiling. After a practitioner crossed the Huashan realm, the perception of fate would often affect reality. She was about to find more people to verify her idea, but she saw Fang Yuan hurriedly walking into the hall with an unprecedentedly serious expression. An eye sect is in danger of destruction. Even Fang Yuan said so. Yin Zai's eyes widened. In his mind, Fang Yuan was the most calm and cautious. Now he even used the word destruction. Hua Yin took a deep breath and regained her composure. Where is Xie Tianxing now? In the secret realm of Tianxing, Bai Xiu soon received the news of Xie Tianxing and couldn't help frowning. Even the high-level officials of an eye sect had a premonition that a catastrophe would happen. What was Bai Mo planning? His lurking this time really made people uneasy. After thinking about it, Bai Xiu finally made up his mind to use astrology. Chapter 655. Under the deep blue hall, Bai Xiu slowly walked over with a solemn expression. Every step he took was like a ripple of water, rippling with lines, like the sea, and also like the most mysterious starry sky. Looking up, the deep night sky was full of stars. Some were dim, and some were flashing. With the special operation of the hall, the stars rotated slowly and deeply. This was not the real starry sky, but it had many connections with the mysterious starry sky. Only here could Bai Xiu really avoid the interference of the natural law and display the accurate art of astrology. Of course, the existence of a starry sky was changed from the natural law to him, so the burden was not ordinary. After performing this method, he would be in a psychic state for a year, and any great change of Qing Shui circle could not be hidden from him. But after a year, what awaited him was a long sleep or death. No one could really see the fate, and he, who was about to bear the fate, would suffer unpredictable backfire. Even so, Bai Xiu still walked to the center of the deep blue hall, made a strange posture, and slowly closed his eyes, as if he was praying. The contradiction between Enai sect and the Life Palace was irreconcilable, and the war was about to break out. He might let the tragedy of Qing Shui Palace repeat. Buzz. After a slight buzz, the rotation of the starry sky on the dome of the hall immediately accelerated. Starlight fell down and poured into Bai Xiu's head. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Under the scouring of the starlight, Bai Xiu's shriveled and old body became full at a speed visible to the naked eye. His dry and pale hair turned into black hair in a few breaths, and all the wrinkles on his face disappeared. In a short moment, he returned to his handsome appearance. Specks of starlight surrounded his body, like elves dancing in the night. He naturally exuded a mysterious and profound feeling. At this moment, looking at him was like looking at the starry sky, mysterious and unspeakable. At a certain moment, Baishio suddenly opened his eyes, and a silver light flashed in his eyes. He smiled, knelt on the ground respectfully, and said silently in his heart, Baishio thanks the Star Lord for his blessing. Xie Tianwei waited quietly for the old ancestor. Even if he had waited here for a whole night, he did not show any impatience. Of course, he knew the pros and cons of the art of astrology, but the old ancestor had made up his mind, and he could not stop him. At this moment, he suddenly heard the sound of the door opening. He couldn't help but raise his head to see a young man who looked extremely similar to him walk out of the hall with a faint smile on his face. His eyes widened. Old ancestor? If not for the fact that he had not changed his clothes, Xie Tianwei would have thought that his father had an illegitimate child. The young man glanced at him, gathered his white robe, and said, If he came out from here, would you still be alive to talk to me? Xie Tianwei's expression relaxed as he smiled and nodded. Even though the old ancestor's appearance had changed, his personality was still the same as before. Fortunately, the art of astrology did not change the old ancestor's nature. In the records of the previous ancestors, the art of astrology was not without accidents. According to legend, in ancient times, there was an evil existence in the starry heavens that responded to the art of astrology and used it to possess the ancestor's body, nearly causing the heavenly star valley to suffer a calamity. It was unknown how the heavenly star valley killed that horrifying existence back then. Xie Tianwei took the seal from Baishio's hand and said solemnly, Old ancestor, be careful. Baishio raised his brows and lightly nodded. Just when Baishio left the secret realm of Tianxing, in the cave opened by the seal entrance of the Qi circle, Qi Tian suddenly opened his eyes, and red flames flashed in his eyes. Ling Li was immediately awakened and stared at this person, who was probably the only great emperor left in the world. Boy, I'm afraid I can't continue to stay here. Qi Tian's first words made Ling Li frown. He asked in a low voice, what happened? He did not doubt Blazing Heaven's sincerity in cooperating with him. After getting along with him these days, it was enough for him to see Blazing Heaven clearly. He was a magnanimous and righteous lord of a realm. He was above board and disdained conspiracies. He was the complete opposite of the fate ancestor who only knew how to hide in the dark. Qi Tian grinned. When he looked up, he seemed to see through the cave and saw the rolling clouds in the sky. The attention of natural law is getting more and more frequent. Biamo must have done something. If I continue to stay here, an Ai's sect will be in crisis. Ling Li took a breath and said cautiously, But if you are not here, an Ai's sect will also be overturned by the Fate Palace. This is Mo's plan. Qi Tian narrowed his eyes and said in a cold tone, Mo, you really deserve your reputation. Ling Li frowned tightly. After thinking about it, he couldn't do anything for the time being. The speed of bloodline awakening was far slower than the speed of crisis. Even after the guidance, his speed of bloodline integration was much faster than before. But there's still a long way to go to integrate completely. If the bloodline is fully awakened, he should be able to step into the great emperor, and his strength may be above me. Qi Tian's tone was full of emotion. Ling Qingshui really stepped into the realm of immortals at that time. Otherwise, he definitely could not let his son step into the Deshang realm just by integrating bloodline. Ling Li was silent for a moment and said helplessly, I lack time. Su Jiuzhou also lacks time to grow up. Her talent is like a demon, even above you, and Mo grasps this point and doesn't give you a chance to grow up. Before Qi Tian finished his words, he suddenly looked serious and snorted coldly. Who is playing tricks? Get out. As he said, he clenched his fist and was about to punch. The figure hiding in the dark suddenly showed up and said hurriedly, Senior, please be merciful. I mean no harm. Qi Tian paused and saw the figure quickly outline. When Ling Li saw the man's face, he couldn't help but blurt out, Xie Tianwei? No, Xie Tianwei's Numa was not so decadent. He looked at the young man's face carefully, and his expression gradually became strange. Old ancestor of Tianqing, the young man was about to approach and saw that Qi Tian was still staring at him coldly. He couldn't help sweating and said with a hollow smile, Ling Li, how did you recognize me? I remember that you once said that you can't come out of the Tianqing secret realm, or you will definitely be noticed by Mo. You are Tianqing's secret realm, Tianqing Valley. Although Qi Tian was in Qimo Circle, he was not unfamiliar with the forces of Qingshui Circle. He even knew more than some holy sections. Hearing Ling Li's words, the vigilance in his eyes suddenly disappeared. Bai Xiu came over and sat down. When he waved his hand, the surrounding stone wall disappeared instantly, and starlight filled the air. This is... Ling Li was surprised and doubtful. Then he saw Bai Xiu smile. I can come out naturally because I'm blessed by starlight and not sensed by the natural law. Speaking of this, Bai Xiu stopped smiling. In my divination, I saw that Ni sect was destroyed by the world-ending thunder test, just like Qingshui Palace in the past. As soon as he said this, Qi Tian and Ling Li were instantly stunned, and their faces became gloomy at the same time. So, I left the secret realm. Bai Xiu stared at Qi Tian. 1 year. When you go back, tell Su Jiuzhou that she only has 1 year. After 1 year, no matter how much she improves, she must come out to preside over the overall situation. Qi Tian's eyes flashed. Looking at the young face that didn't match Bai Xiu's at all, he seemed to understand something faintly. He nodded gently and said in a soft tone, I will tell her without missing a word. Ling Li looked at Bai Xiu's suddenly relaxed face and faintly had a bad premonition in his heart. Senior, fate, there are many invisible threads intertwining with each other. Any change in fate will cause the threads to change shape. Bai Xiu turned his head and interrupted Ling Li's words. He chuckled. I can see it. No matter what Bai Mo will do next, I can see it in advance. Maybe I can take this opportunity to spy on the essence of Bai Mo's vital skill, which is of great use to you. What was the price of seeing it? Ling Li opened his mouth and wanted to ask, but in the end, he couldn't. He was afraid that he couldn't afford it. With these words of yours, I can rest assured. Qi Tian waved his hand to sweep away the ceiling boundary. His figure faded away quickly, and his voice lingered. Bai Xiu smiled again, and his eyes fell on Ling Li, who had a rather complicated expression. I will not put my hope on one person. Su Jiuzhou has 1 year, so do you, and maybe even more. Ling Li was slightly stunned and saw Bai Xiu turn around. Come with me. A moment later, Hua Yin gathered everyone in the hall, but it was not her, but Bai Xiu. Old ancestor, you, Xie Tianqing, who had been stationed in Ni sect for a long time, saw the old ancestor's appearance. His face changed dramatically. He wanted to say something, but was stopped by Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu glanced at the crowd in the hall with different expressions. His eyes paused on Feng Yuan and Ling Li, who was ignored by everyone. Then he waved his sleeves and scattered a piece of starlight. Seeing this, Xie Tianqing's guess came true, and his face became gloomier. After the palace was shrouded by strange starlight, Bai Xiu smiled and said slowly, except for a few people, including Lord Hua Yin, most of you are the talents in the reincarnation mirror. Now you gather here. Maybe you have different selfishness, but there is only one purpose. Bai Xiu frowned, and his expression suddenly became cold. Revenge, whether it is for myself, holy girl Su, or the Qingshui Palace that was destroyed in that year, by Mo, deserves to die. Old ancestor Tianqing, you can say what you want to say. Yin Zai raised his eyebrows. Although he was in awe of the mysterious master behind Tiny Attic, in his mind, there was only one person who could instruct him. Bai Xiu smiled and was not angry. He continued, it took Su Jiuzhou just 10 years to make Ni sect a behemoth. But in essence, the one who can really be the enemy of Bai Mo is never you, only her. If she dies, Ni sect will inevitably be overturned. If she is injured, you can only avoid the Fate Palace, and you may not even be able to bear the pressure of holy sections. If she is missing, you can only shrink your combat power. Although there are 27 holy sects on your side, you still dare not take any action. Bai Xiu's eyes swept across the crowd sharply, and he said mercilessly, "You, except Ling Li, are too weak. In this way, you will only become a burden for Su Jiuzhou to fight against Bai Mo." As soon as he said this, everyone's face changed slightly, and the hall was dead silent. The error-free chapter of The Poisonous Wife will continue to be updated in hand-to-hand bar without any advertisement. Please collect and recommend hand-to-hand bar. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please collect. The Poisonous Wife hand-to-hand bar is updated the fastest. Chapter 656. Yin Zai's eyes flashed with shame. When he was about to speak, Bai Xiu continued, "Of course it's not your fault. The years of cultivation are long. Even for ordinary golden core stage cultivators, 10 years is extremely short, let alone you. Facing a formidable enemy, you must be as strong as possible in a short time. I have a solution." "What is it?" Huayan glanced at the demoralized crowd and asked for them. Bai Xiu chuckled and pointed to the reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring enshrined in the center behind him, saying, "In fact, it's not my solution. I just see a way leading to these two magic treasures." Everyone turned their eyes to the reincarnation mirror, and a complicated look flashed across their faces. The beginning of everything was this treasure, and now the reincarnation mirror actually became Su Jiuzhou's magic treasure. Seeing that the reincarnation mirror was still pretending to be dead, Bai Xiu raised his head slightly and said leisurely, "Su Jiuzhou is at a critical moment and can't be disturbed. If you can stand up and give her a hand, you will be able to please your master." As soon as he said this, the reincarnation mirror trembled slightly in everyone's shocked eyes. Immediately, a phantom of a little beast appeared and stared at Bai Xiu, saying, "Really? You're not a spirit. How can you know my existence?" Bai Xiu pointed to his eyes and smiled mysteriously. "I see it. Of course I see it." The little beast smiled proudly and controlled the reincarnation mirror to fly to the middle of the crowd. When it was about to be mysterious for a while, a sudden idiot behind it almost made it fall on the table. Yin Zai turned around and saw that black lotus ring also flew up and landed on the long table. In addition to the reincarnation mirror, when did Master get another treasure? He recalled for a moment and found that this black ring was on her ring finger from the moment he met her. 2 treasures. Mr. actually had more treasures than a normal sage sect. Everyone was speechless for a while. In the face of the 2 treasures, they seemed to have lost the ability to speak. Only Ling Li and Fang Yuan looked as usual. The former had already communicated with them, and the latter also had treasures and was faintly worried. He didn't care much about what happened in front of him. "Tell me, little old man, what do you want this idiot to do?" Black Lotus's tone was like that of a big brother. Samsara was furious, but because of the lingering power he had, he didn't dare say anything. Seeing this, Bai Xiu came up with an idea. He smiled slightly and still said to Samsara, "Senior reincarnation mirror spirit, only a few decades have passed in the mirror world, but hundreds of years have passed in the outside world. Does it mean that you can now also create a space to slow down the flow of time, which is beneficial to cultivation?" Samsara was stunned. He blurted out, "How did you know? Really?" Yin Zai exclaimed in surprise. Samsara realized that he had lost his composure and coughed lightly before continuing. "What you said is true. Controlling time is what this sovereign is best at. Ever since I swallowed a mirror from who knows where, this sovereign's injuries have mostly healed." He really ate the fate-returning mirror. Bai Xiu's eyelids twitched, but he resisted the heartache and continued to ask, "What is the rate of time flow?" Samsara's arrogant expression instantly froze. He looked at everyone in embarrassment. "Up until now, I've only recovered to 20 times. 20 times? Yin Zai's expression became strange. 1 year and 20 years were indeed a long time for mortals. But for practitioners who could practice for hundreds or thousands of years at a time, what was 20 years? No wonder you didn't take the initiative to show up. Bai Xiu suddenly understood. His purple starry eyes turned, and threads gradually appeared in his eyes. He relied on these threads to judge the direction. If he used the secret method of astrology, more hidden threads would emerge. But such threads could not last as long as the threads he usually saw, and he could only maintain them for a moment. But a moment was enough. He clearly saw that there were countless secret threads connecting the reincarnation mirror and the Black Lotus ring. Or these two treasures were originally one? Thinking of this, Bai Xiu cupped his hands to Black Lotus ring and chuckled. Qinmu, if you let these juniors lose the last chance to strengthen themselves because of your ridiculous self-esteem, Su Jiuzhou will not spare you when she comes back. At that time, your position as the boss of magic weapons will not be guaranteed. Bai, are you tired of living? Black Lotus's spirit body emerged with a gloomy face. He was not a stupid donkey like Samsara, so he could naturally see that Bai Xiu's state at the moment was not right. Ho, for the sake of this old man, how about you assist the reincarnation mirror once? Black Lotus's old face darkened. He stared at Bai Xiu, and then turned his head to glance at the young people present. Finally, he sighed softly and said, For your sake, it won't happen again. In addition, I have a condition. The world in the mirror is also open to me. Bai Xiu looked at reincarnation mirror. Although Samsara was a little reluctant, he nodded without resistance when he thought that Black Lotus was actually an assisting treasure for him. Black Lotus snorted coldly, and a red knot appeared out of thin air from the ring. It was fastened to the handle of the bronze mirror and turned into a black ornament. A strange pneuma shrouded the two treasures, and they soon merged into one. Samsara closed his eyes to sense for a moment, and opened his eyes in surprise 1,000 times. Everyone was moved. The time difference of 1,000 times meant that 1 year was equivalent to 1,000 years. The two treasures in Master's hands were so incredible. That's good. Bai Xiu laughed and was not surprised at all, but it's not enough. He touched the interspatial ring with his finger and took out a walnut-sized azure crystal. There were many lines on its surface, which were as deep as the starry sky. This is the starry sky essence that I condensed for 10,000 years. It can replace the celestial spar and be used to set up the spirit gathering formation. Its effect is even better than the celestial spar. It can also conceal the secrets of heaven, so that you won't be discovered by White Demon in advance. After saying this, Bai Xiu threw the starry sky essence into the mirror. The mirror rippled and swallowed it completely, and a strong starlight aura diffused. He deserves to be called Old Ancestor Heavenly Star. He can even see a trace of the essence of the treasures used by Master. Yin Zai was excited, but there was no lack of admiration in his thoughts. Huayan took a deep look at Bai Xiu. Everything in the world had a price to be obtained. What did Old Ancestor Heavenly Star pay for suddenly seeing through the essence? Old Bai, this is not like you. The ring hanging on the reincarnation mirror shook, and Qian Mu's spiritual body appeared. I have never seen you so generous. What can you get by doing this? As long as I can defeat White Demon, I will make a profit. Bai Xiu sighed. I'm ashamed. Even in this state, I still can't infer the real purpose of White Demon. After the destruction of the Qingshui Palace, he could clearly expand, unify the Qingshui Circle, and even become an immortal. But he didn't, and even left many hidden dangers. Lingli frowned slightly. After thinking about it, what Bai Xiu said was not unreasonable. Whether it was the peak holy sects or many other holy sects, he just slowly infiltrated behind them, never used fierce means, and rarely took action in person. There's something strange in it. I will try to find out in this year. Your task is to strive to break through in the reincarnation mirror, so that you can't only be a burden when the final battle comes. Huayan was silent for a moment and nodded. Just do as Senior Bai said. But if everyone enters the reincarnation mirror, how can an eye sect maintain operation? Bai Xiu laughed. Tainyake Attic will make arrangements. Lord Hua, you have to work hard and stay outside to make decisions. If even Tynyak Attic can't find out the movement of the Fate Palace, your NI sect can't find it either. Hua Yin sighed helplessly. Senior, you are right. Next, all the high-level officials of NI sect and leanly building poured into the reincarnation mirror. Under the request of Bai Xiao, there was no ghost left. He practiced astrology and had enough understanding of the natural law. Even if the natural law was controlled by White Demon now, if he wanted to send the Annihilation Thunder test, he couldn't do it without a target. There must be a primer. This primer could be the evildoer who is envied by the natural law, the ghost that shouldn't stay in the world, or the evil practitioner who killed mortals indiscriminately and committed too many sins. If the ghost stayed in NI sect and was found by a White Demon, he would have enough reason to use the fate skill to affect the natural law. He had to guard against it. An hour later, the hall was empty except for Bai Xiao and Hua Yin. Even Xie Tianxing was sent into the reincarnation mirror by Bai Xiao. Since he was in an NI sect, it was meaningless for Xie Tianxing to stay here. It was better to practice more. Senior, what did you see? Hua Yin did not hide the worry in her eyes. You suddenly came out of the secret realm of Tianxing. A few days ago, Zai and I also felt uneasy. Did White Demon take action? I can't see it clearly. Bai Xiao sighed softly, but as long as I'm still in an NI sect, I can stop the damage in time and prevent White Demon from succeeding. If Su Jiuzhou can take that step in this year, everything will become simple. The natural law can't do anything about the Great Emperor from the Mother Star. All the plans of White Demon will fail. Great Emperor. Hua Yin murmured and became speechless. Although she believed in Su Li's talent and that she could become the Great Emperor one day, in just 1 year, the possibility was close to zero. Just after all the people of NI sect entered the reincarnation mirror, the golden tower in the Life Palace suddenly flashed, and then seemed to lose power, dispelling the brewing thunder test. Swish! A white shadow flashed and landed in front of the golden tower. The white light dissipated, and it was Bai Ming. He stared at the dimming golden pagoda, his expression calm, and he remained silent. Su Zipei walked over silently and stopped behind him, looking docile. Bai Ming smiled. It makes the natural law unable to take action from a source. It seems that there are other secret existences in NI sect besides Su Jiuzhou. Interesting. Su Zipei raised her head, saluted, and whispered, Master, I will go down to prepare for the second step. Go ahead. Bai Ming's voice was soft, and he looked in the direction of Jiuzhou region. How are you going to solve my move? Chapter 657. It was quiet in the reincarnation mirror. Reincarnation mirror spirit could only maintain a palace-sized space under the difference of time flow rate of 1,000 times. Fortunately, for people of an NI sect, it was enough to have a place to meditate and practice, and a palace was enough to be divided into many enclosed spaces for people to concentrate on practice. In one of the closed spaces, Ling Li was concentrating on integrating and digesting the blood. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and saw the shadow of Black Lotus Ring's ring spirit, Qian Mu, hovering in front of him. Brat, do you want to reconcile with your precious son? Keijai smiled meaningfully. I have a way. Do you want to give it a try? Ling Li stared at Qian Mu quietly and said, After your master comes back, won't he get even with you? Qian Mu's old face darkened, but he immediately smiled and said, Even if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. What am I afraid of? Ling Li, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In this space, there will be memory fragments inadvertently. You don't have the final say, but it's different with me. Ling Li was silent for a moment. What should I do? In another enclosed space, Su Buwang closed his eyes tightly and was about to enter a meditative state. Suddenly, a horrifying picture flashed in front of him and woke him up. What's going on? This reincarnation mirror also has the ability to scare people? Su Buwang muttered to himself. After waiting for a while, he found that there was no other movement. When he was about to meditate again, another picture flashed in front of him. This time, he finally saw it clearly. It was a scene in the reincarnation mirror. It was the scene when his mother and that man first met in the temple fair in the reincarnation mirror. He had seen the same scene when he was possessed by the bloodstone. Could it be that there are still images from back then in this space? Subu Wang guessed in his heart. At this moment, the picture changed again to the scene where Su Jiuzhou met Yin Zai in the Blackstone Forest and broke into the Tsang Lei's cave together. These scenes originated from the memory of Yin Zai Ring itself. Qian Mu did not need to steal Yin Zai's memory to restore it perfectly. But Subu Wang didn't know that after seeing this scene, he immediately overturned his previous conjecture. This is Fairy Sister and Brother Zai? Could be Big Brother Zai's memories? Is it because of the change in the flow of time that we can see other people's memories? Subu Wang suddenly panicked. Would his memories be seen by others? No. The other people's cultivation is higher than mine, and they might have entered a meditative state long ago. They might not be able to see this scene, and it's very likely that only I can see it. Subu Wang was slightly relieved, and his thoughts became active again. Since he could see other people's memories, what was that person's past like? This wasn't the first time he had thought of this, but out of consideration for his reputation, he naturally wouldn't ask him directly. In fact, whenever he saw him, he would fly into a rage and refuse to communicate with him. Qian Mu, who was observing Subu Wang in the dark, saw his expression and suddenly smiled in his heart. He swept all the memories of Ling Li into his mind. Stupid donkey, wait for your death. You're definitely going to be the scapegoat. You want to surpass me as the boss of magic treasures? Dream on. Qian Mu hid his figure happily, and Subu Wang finally got what he wanted to see at this moment. Greetings, Lord Evil Monarch, Lord Evil Emperor. In the picture, the background of Shangtian Shrine appeared. Ling Li, dressed in a black battle suit, looked indifferent and walked into Shangtian Palace step by step. Subu Wang had never been to Shangtian Palace. At this moment, he couldn't help but widen his eyes and watch carefully. What do you want me to do? Ling Li pushed the door with no awe on his face. He looked up at the back of the throne in the shadow. After a while, a low voice rippled in the hall. There are too many talents in Ankuei Valley. Ling Li's eyes darkened when he heard the words, I see. After that, he turned and left the hall without saying anything. Subu Wang's eyes flashed with disappointment when he saw this. Most of the talents in Ankuei Valley were secretly eliminated, and the outside world blamed that person. He still had a fluke in his heart, thinking that he was slandered. He didn't expect it to be true, and it was the order of the Lord of Shangtian Shrine. Shangtian Shrine was really disgusting. Thinking of this, Subu Wang continued to watch. Soon after the talents in Ankuei Valley were killed, he left Shangtian Shrine. He wanted to know why that person suddenly changed his behavior and let him go. The picture changed, and he came to the canyon full of purple, poisonous mist. When he zoomed in, there was only the purple mist in front of him, and nothing could be seen. Suddenly, a bloodlight flashed, and a scream sounded. A corpse was thrown on a mountain wall and split into pieces. Senior fellow apprentice, help me. A practitioner in the costume of inherited disciple of Ankuei Valley came in a hurry. When he walked halfway, another bloodlight flashed behind him, and the scream stopped abruptly. Ling Li's pale and blood-stained face appeared from the mist. His black robe was riddled with holes, and blood was flowing, which blended with the black color. If the camera wasn't close enough, it couldn't be seen at all. Perhaps Subu Wang had never seen him so embarrassed and breathless. Subu Wang's heart tightened, and a strange emotion rose in his heart. Am I feeling sorry for him? Are you kidding me? Subu Wang laughed at himself. How could I feel sorry for him? What a bitch. Ling Li, you can't escape. In the mist, more figures appeared. There were dozens of people, and they surrounded Ling Li angrily. You assassinated so many of my junior fellow apprentices. You can't absolve yourself from the blame, even if you die 10,000 times. The talents of Ankuei Valley didn't give Ling Li a chance to breathe at all. Under the command of the leading talent, everyone swarmed up and attacked him together. Even though he knew that the person finally came back alive, Subu Wang couldn't help but be nervous when he saw this. How did he escape? At the critical moment, the picture suddenly blurred, as if the person deliberately blurred this memory, or he didn't want to recall it. Subu Wong felt uncomfortable for a while. It felt like a storyteller was talking about the exciting part of a story, but the storyteller said, "Listen to the next story." No, it was even more uncomfortable than listen to the next story. Unless he asked that person in person, he would never get the answer. But this uncomfortable feeling didn't last long, and Subu Wong's attention was attracted by the next scene. A huge palace appeared in the picture, reflecting the side face of a man in a black robe sitting on the throne. Not long after, Subu Wong saw himself coming in from outside the hall. He remembered that Ling Li had just come back at that time. Before that, he should have been fighting in Ankue Valley. In such a short time, his injury couldn't get better, and it was very likely that he was still seriously injured. But he didn't realize this at that time. It was on that day that he uncharacteristically promised him to leave Shengtian Shrine and didn't stop him. Until today, Subu Wong still remembered how overjoyed he was that day. He was like a bird out of the cage and finally had a chance to soar in the sky. At this time, the picture happened to show him disappearing from the big tactical matrix of Shengtian Shrine. Subu Wong was slightly stunned. He suddenly realized that this was the memory of that person. That was to say, that person had been paying attention to him from beginning to end. Unlike what he thought at the beginning, that person didn't care about his life at all. Swish! The picture returned to the Hall of Evil Emperor again. The next scene should be the scene that happened after he left. Subu Wong's spirit was refreshed. He stared at it intently for fear of missing any scene. At the moment when the boundary of Shengtian Shrine was closed, in the Black Palace, an indescribable bitterness appeared on the well-defined face of the white-haired young man. Subu Wong almost thought that his eyes were dazzled. Such an expression could actually appear on that person's face. Was it because of me? Subu Wong's heart beat like a drum. At this moment, a sigh seemed to ring in his ear. If you let him out like this, you can't explain to the palace master. A broken mirror lit up, and Subu Wong looked at the scene in the picture blankly. It turned out that he was suddenly let go because the master of Shengtian Shrine suddenly decided to let him marry in a Huangxing Hall, and that person didn't want to be sorry to his mother. So, you let him go? How is it possible? Subu Wong laughed, and his hoarse voice scared himself. That person actually thinks about me? Am I crazy, or is the reincarnation mirror crazy? How can evil emperor be trapped by love? At least in front of others, I can't. Hearing this sentence from the black figure in the picture, Subu Wong's body suddenly shook and fell into silence. He was no longer a greenhorn, and many things had been confirmed from the outside world. His mother was not a maid of Shengtian Shrine, but holy girl Su who caused trouble in Qingshui's circle. Why did he lie to him at that time? Lord Evil Emperor, the palace master invites you. When Subu Wong was pondering, the picture changed again, and he entered the purple-black towering palace again, Shengtian Palace. Ling Li, do you know your mistake? Lord Palace Master, what are you talking about? What did I do wrong? I haven't settled accounts with you yet. You tarnished the bloodline of my Ling family, but you even protected that little bastard. Subu Wong saw that Ling Li was hit and vomited blood. His heart seemed to be cut open, and the pain was unbearable. I accidentally lost the Yang Jade mask. Please punish me, Lord Palace Master. Bastard, do you think I can't find that bastard because of this? How can I have such a stupid son like you? For a bastard brought back from outside, you dare to disobey my order regardless of the future of Shengtian Shrine? Get out. Subu Wong's eyes were dull. After a moment of silence, his eyes focused again, and he continued to watch the memory flow with concentration. Then he saw a lot. It turned out that because of the Lihin tablet, he had to be controlled by Shengtian Shrine, and the price of using the Lihin sword was to devour his lifespan. So he was young and full of silver hair. In order to protect himself, he had to choose to alienate himself. Otherwise, as long as he showed a trace of love, the enemies in Shengtian Shrine were enough to kill him 10,000 times, not to mention the outside world. Even he could survive outside. It was the result of that person's confrontation with the Lord of Shengtian Palace. It was ridiculous that he had always thought that he was lucky to meet Uncle Fong. The error-free chapter of The Poisonous Wife will continue to be updated in the mobile game bar, and there is no advertisement in the website. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please collect. The Poisonous Wife is the fastest updated in the mobile game bar. Chapter 658. 1 second to remember, 800 mail sign Xiao, divided by talk, net, wonderful pop-up window, free reading. The picture kept changing, and soon it came to the Tianjiao battle that Su Buwang was also familiar with. Seeing the scene at the end of the divine awareness, Su Buwang finally understood why that person disappeared, and then left Shengtian Shrine. The Lord of Shengtian Palace was a terrible hoax. He was not that person's biological father at all, but an enemy. It was White Demon who used his bloodline to suppress his clansmen. After being saved by Su Jiuzhou, he finally understood everything. Bloodline awakening. The more Su Buwang watched, the more uncomfortable he felt. Compared with that person, what was the grievance he suffered? It turns out that I am not only the descendant of Holy Girl Su, but also the lineal descendant of Qing Shui Palace. I deserve to be called. Su Buwang thought with self-mockery, and the memory picture in front of him gradually faded away. At this moment, Su Buwang only felt that his heart was extremely calm. The knot in his heart in the past was opened, and his thoughts were clear, which made him gradually fall into a strange state. All of a sudden, a piece of memory surfaced in his mind. Su Buwang was in a daze because the state was broken, and he murmured, "Whose memory is it?" It was a mountaintop. If he remembered correctly, it was in an ice sect. In the picture, Ling Li sat cross-legged, with reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring in front of him. The dialogue between them was extremely clear. Achoo! The reincarnation beast sneezed as it lay on the ground. It immediately looked warily at Qian Mu, who was sitting with his legs crossed. "I have a bad premonition. Did you cause trouble? Making trouble?" Qian Mu looked helpless and spread his hands. "This reincarnation mirror is your territory. What can I do? At most, I can only go in and see the cultivation state of those young people." "You're right." The suspicion in the eyes of the reincarnation beast faded away, and it lay down again. Qian Mu smiled faintly and suddenly sneezed. His expression was slightly stiff, and he scratched his head. "Did I overlook something?" Hemp Camp, Chimo region. In the hall that was full of piles of rubble, a bright black light penetrated through. The space stagnated for a moment, and then all the rubble that passed by turned into powder until it fell on the wall at the end of the hall, silently leaving a crack in the wall. In the darkness, she gently waved her fingertips, and the black light stopped. Then it flashed back and lingered on her fingertips like a black ring. The sword light flashed. The sword light was reflected in Su Li's eyes. The power of the divine ability was far beyond her expectation, and the amount of black lotus stones it absorbed was also far beyond her imagination. The black lotus stones around the camp had all been gathered in this palace in just a few days. Now in the wasteland outside the camp, it was rare to see black lotus stones. But even so, after absorbing all the black stones, she could only cultivate 3 supernatural powers. In disappointment, Su Li tested the supernatural power a little. She only released a little power, but it almost let the black lotus magic sword penetrate the palace and hurt innocent people. If I can forge a 12th grade divine sword. Su Li couldn't help but think about it, but she soon restrained her thoughts. Mine was no longer able to collect a large number of black lotus stones in a short time. Now that her strength had greatly increased, she could run amok in the Chimo circle. It was time to explore the whereabouts of Su Bai and the divine thunder of the 5 elements. Thinking of this, Su Li waved her hand and turned all the gray-white gravel in the hall into stone powder, which was a gift from Maing. After the energy in the gravel was absorbed, the hardness did not decrease, but increased, and it had a certain viscosity. It was a good raw material for building city walls. Due after finishing this step, Su Li's figure disappeared like a bubble. When she reappeared, she was already high above the sky outside Zyma Camp. She took a deep look at Ma Ying before turning around and flying off into the distance, disappearing into the horizon. 3 days later, when Li Hong came to clean up the rubble, he found that the building was empty. He hurriedly went to inform Mada. Mada was not surprised by this. He only chuckled with a hint of hope in his smile. Maybe the day that the Realm Lord is looking forward to will soon arrive. 2 days ago, Su Li stopped in front of the tall, immortal hall with a calm look. Compared with Qing Shui's circle, Qimo's circle was much smaller. In just one day, she crossed more than half of Qimo's circle and came here. She sensed that the perfect chakra was close at hand, but it seemed to be far away. But here, boom, the towering gate of the immortal hall opened suddenly. It was not the same as when Ma Jintian came here before, which only opened a little. Now, the gate was completely open. Then, the warriors of Qimo's circle, led by Bing Feng, came out in 2 rows, leaned against the gate, and saluted respectfully. "Welcome, Grand Elder Su." Bing Feng shouted first, and then everyone shouted in unison, which was as loud as thunder. "Welcome, Grand Elder Su." Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly and said nothing. Bing Feng approached and said with a smile, "Grand Elder Su, the Realm Lord has been waiting for a long time. Senior Qitian, you are too polite." Su Li chuckled and walked into the gate with her hands behind her back. After a few flashes, she left Bing Feng behind and crossed a long distance into the hall. "Senior Qitian, please don't blame me for coming here rashly." Bing Feng glanced at the hall from afar and ordered everyone to close the gate. Next, the conversation between the 2 circles would be held. He wanted to ensure that such a communication would not be disturbed by any external things. "Ha! Su Li, don't regard me as an outsider." Qitian waved his hand, and the dim hall was instantly brightened. Qitian, who was tall and had red hair, waved his hand and came down from the throne with a hearty smile. He looked slightly serious. By MO control the natural law to take action, so I had to come back in advance. Su Li frowned, and Qitian said again, "However, with the help of the old ancestor of Tianxing Valley, you don't have to worry too much about the safety of an ice sect. He asked me to tell you that you only have 1 year to improve wholeheartedly. After 1 year, it will be the final battle." Su Li raised her eyebrows slightly. Bai Xiao is so confident. There are a lot of secrets in Tianxing Valley. This time, he also put in all his effort. Qitian shook his head meaningfully. "As far as I know, those who used that kind of astrology didn't end well." Su Li frowned slightly, but soon relaxed. At this time, she already had the necessary awareness. If the war started, Bai Xiao would not be the only sacrifice. "Elder brother Qitian, you should know why I am here." Su Li got straight to the point. Qitian nodded and exclaimed, "You were so bold in the battle of Tsiyun House, but you really succeeded." He waved his sleeves. "Follow me." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Li saw the throne split into 2 halves and move to both sides. The entrance of a small world appeared. "This is..." Su Li's pupils shrank slightly. Qitian laughed. "I am at least in the Deshang realm. I was really bored for a long time, so I made this thing, which is equivalent to the evolution of the Junior Emperor field. The situation of the Chakra realm is a little complicated, so I have to put it in there. So, I have to inconvenience you." Qitian looked apologetic. Su Li understood what he meant. If she entered this small world, her life would not be under her control. "It doesn't matter. I believe in elder brother Qitian." Su Li stepped into the small world without saying anything. Qitian's eyes were full of admiration, and he followed her closely. Behind the door, her eyes rippled like water for a moment, and finally became clear. What came into Su Li's eyes was not the pale space she imagined, but a beautiful valley. She couldn't help but be surprised. Qitian looked rough, but she didn't expect that his mind was so delicate. "It was too boring, so I made some embellishments. You're the first guest here." Qitian came from behind, smiled, and pointed to the ice coffin erected in the valley, saying, "No, you are the second one." Su Li saw the frozen figure, and suddenly looked serious. She flashed to the ice coffin and whispered to herself, "Su Bai, At this moment, Su Bai's perfect face was full of hideous cracks, like a porcelain vase that was about to break. If it was not frozen, it was likely to be broken. He is in a strange state now. Blazing Heaven walked over and said in a solemn tone, by relying on the power of the perfect wheel, he was barely able to absorb the 5 elements divine lightning into his body. Moreover, because of the strike you endured, the 5 elements divine lightning showed signs of fusing into one. However, even though he is the spirit of divine lightning, the fused 5 elements divine lightning is still not something he can withstand. Chitian glanced at Su Li's side face when he said this. Fortunately, I found it in time and temporarily sealed him, so that he won't continue to destroy himself. If this happened to you, with your physical body, it is most likely that you will explode like fireworks, and your soul will fly away, and your bones will disappear. Su Li suddenly understood, and her heart was heavy. Thinking of Su Bai's strange behavior in the Battle of Xian House, she finally understood. He knew that she couldn't bear the merged 5 elements thunder, so he made his own decision. The spirit of the divine thunder was so stupid that it made people feel distressed. Is there any way to save him? Su Li turned around, no longer looking at Su Bai, and stared at Chitian with burning eyes. Chitian seemed to have expected Su Li's question and smiled slightly. First of all, you have to understand what level the 5 elements thunder will become after it is merged. The thunder of tranquility. Su Li blurted out, and then added, my understanding of the thunder of tranquility is just on the surface. No wonder you are so bold. The ignorant are fearless, Chitian sighed. As the daughter of luck, I am afraid that only people like you can still be alive and kicking in the case of contact with the thunder of tranquility. The thunder of tranquility is a thunder method that can only be mastered by immortals, and its horror is even above the world-ending thunder. Chitian smiled. In other words, if you can master the thunder of tranquility, the natural law of Qingshui circle can't do anything to you. Su Li's eyes flickered. Her hunch was right. Was the thunder of tranquility the key to the final battle? Her painstaking collection was not in vain. But you overestimate yourself and underestimate the thunder of tranquility. Chitian shook his head and warned, judging from your previous performances, your physical body seems to have exceeded the limit of the human clan and become a half-immortal. But it is far from enough to master the thunder of tranquility. You know, even among the immortals, there are very few people who can master the thunder of tranquility. Su Li was silent when she heard that. She was not affected by Chitian, but was thinking about a question and soon asked it. Chapter 659. In 1 second. 800 mail signs small divided by talk net. Wonderful pop-up window free reading. The space of the small world stagnated for a moment. Chitian smiled and said nothing. He looked at Su Li for a moment and said, Are you doubting me? Su Li looked calm and smiled freely. If I don't ask, I'm afraid you will doubt whether I am real or not. Chitian was stunned and immediately laughed. That's right. If you don't ask, you're not Su Li. I don't know a lot about immortals. As for the reason, it is what I will tell you next. Chitian waved his hand, and the portal of the small world reappeared. Come with me. You will understand everything when you see him. Su Li nodded and left the small world. She could not accept the infusion of the thunder of tranquility before her physical body improved further. Naturally, she could not save Su Bai for the time being. After leaving the small world, Chitian took Su Li all the way down from the ground, as if there was no end, and they moved forward without rest. Chitian gradually stopped talking, and Su Li did not say anything, either. She faintly understood what Chitian wanted to take her see. If it was true, it meant that there was no way back for the Chimo Circle. 3 days and 3 nights later, the temperature in the passage had reached a terrifying level, and the nothingness was distorted, turning into ferocious faces, constantly twisting. The fiery red magma surged in the geocentric river. It was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. Su Li seemed to be unaware of it and followed Chitian. I was just suspicious before, but now I am sure that you have broken through the physical limit of the human clan. Otherwise, it is impossible for you to come here with me without using your practice method. In this way, my previous preparation is not in vain. Chitian turned a corner, and suddenly it became clear, and the temperature dropped instantly. A huge azure ball of light came into Su Li's eyes. It was floating and rotating slowly, and there were large black spots on its surface, occupying nearly half of the spherical area, like entangled moss, which was annoying. This is the core of a realm? Su Li's eyes flashed. Although it is not perfect, it is very beautiful, so beautiful that it is intoxicating. Yes, I'm also amazed when I see it for the first time. Chitian walked closer to the boundary core. An icy aura seeped into his pores, but he didn't feel cold at all. A realm core is the mother of a realm, and it is the embodiment of rules. Its existence is above the so-called heavenly Tao. Only when a realm core exists can it give birth to a heavenly Tao. Chitian drew out a wisp of blue pneuma and threw it to Su Li. All my knowledge about immortals is from here. Su Li didn't dodge and let the blue pneuma flow into her mind. As expected, she got information about the cultivation realm from it. It is declining, heading towards an irreversible destruction. At that time, everyone in Chi Mo domain will be buried with it. Blazing Heaven's eyes were filled with sorrow. I can't save it. To it, we're all too insignificant. My current cultivation is mostly due to its guidance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to achieve the martial monarch realm in just 10,000 years. It turned out that it hadn't been long since Chi Tian became a great emperor. No wonder he couldn't join forces with Ling Qingshui to deal with White Demon. At that time, he probably couldn't even break through the barrier between the two worlds. As a foreign practitioner, Ling Qingshui knew little about the history of Qingshui Circle and didn't know the existence of Mo Circle. Su Li, I'll bring you here. Blazing Heaven turned around with determination and hope in his eyes. You can use the boundary core of Mo Circle as you wish. As long as you can make a breakthrough in your physical body within a year and reach the minimum limit of integrating the thunder of tranquility. At that time, White Demon will no longer be an obstacle, and I only have one request. Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly, and her voice was soft but firm. If I don't die, your idea will come true. Otherwise, I will be buried with the boundary core of Mo Circle. Ha ha ha! Blazing Heaven looked up to the sky and laughed very happily. This time I didn't misjudge you. Time is pressing, so I won't delay you. During this period, unless Qingshui Circle is destroyed by White Demon, I won't disturb you. Just do whatever you want. Blazing Heaven left without hesitation. Even if he still had a lot of doubts about Su Li's identity, at this moment, he could only win a glimmer of survival by making a big gamble. In front of the quiet and cool Mo Circle, Su Li flew forward and paused on the surface of the boundary core for a moment. Then she blended into the boundary core without hesitation. The contradictory feeling of coldness and warmth wrapped Su Li layer by layer. Su Li was shocked to find that her 5 senses disappeared at the moment she jumped into the boundary core. Instead, it was a vast and boundless field of vision. She seemed to replace the eyes of the boundary core and saw everything that happened in the whole Mo Circle at this moment. She saw dozens of zombies sleeping in the black eggs in the depths of the dead zone. The 12th black egg was broken, and the zombies in it disappeared. But a crack appeared on the first black egg. She saw the Qianchang Battalion in the whole Qingshui Circle. Countless warriors worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. They tried their best to survive. She saw Ma Jintian, who was as thin as a stick, swallowed the last elixir given by Bing Feng in the Ma camp, and his body was slightly full. Everything was in her eyes. Su Li couldn't help but think, was the communication between Chitian and the boundary core the same as what she experienced? No, if it was true, Chitian would have a way to deal with the zombie. Perhaps only she could do it. But what was special about her? Her reincarnation was only the body of Evil Ghost. But for the Boundary Core, the body of Evil Ghost was similar to the breath of the dead zone. It was closer to the level of the enemy, right? Just when Suli was puzzled, a thought came out of the Boundary Core, like a terminally ill old man, and slowly whispered in her ear. Descendant of the undead clan, I need your help. Descendant of the undead clan? Suli was at a loss for a moment, and then she quickly realized that the body of Evil Ghost could be said to be the work of Black Lotus. But the undead clan, her pupil shrank. Was it left by her parents? Suli was shocked. It was the first time that she heard the information about her origin. Black Lotus always said nothing about her reincarnation in detail. Maybe her resurrection had nothing to do with Black Lotus Ring, but because of the bloodline of the undead clan, just from the literal meaning, Suli could understand that this clan seemed to be difficult to completely die out. Did that mean that her biological father or mother was probably still alive? After a while, Suli temporarily suppressed the chaotic thoughts, forced herself to calm down, and tried to pass through a thought. How do you know that I am from the undead clan? It seemed that this question was too simple, and the Boundary Core quickly gave a response. If you're not from the undead clan, you will die at the moment when you integrate into me. If you're not from the undead clan, you will die. If you're not from the undead clan, you can't communicate with me, because the human clan and I are not in the same dimension. Your instinctive integration into my body is also the proof of the undead clan. Suli listened quietly. Perhaps the Boundary Core realized that this undead clan had no common sense, so he didn't even know the talent of the undead clan, so it continued to popularize for her. Your undead clan feeds on the energy of the Boundary Core. Our Jie clan and you are natural enemies, but at this moment, there is a chance for cooperation. The Boundary Core of Qing Shui, Circle, and I are compatriots, and there is no difference between us. At best, she's a little better, and I'm a little worse. But 10,000 years ago, she suddenly swallowed the natural law that I was pregnant with, so that I was irreversibly polluted by the dead zone and went to death. Suli fell into a long silence. She was quickly digesting every news brought by the Boundary Core. For her, it was like opening the door to a new world, and the information she received was completely different from the past. You are very strange. In addition to the talent of the undead clan, you have the pneuma of the same origin as the dead zone. If the essence of your soul was not from the undead clan, I would have killed you the moment you entered my body. Suli was in a cold sweat, and her thoughts turned very fast. After a while, she transmitted the sound and asked, "What is the relationship between you and the natural law? You can understand it according to the sex in your Qing Shui circle. My existence is equivalent to the grand elder of a sect, and I am the root to maintain the existence of the sect. The natural law is the assistant to help me manage the sect. All the rules are made by me, and I give it the ability to send the divine punishment. Without me, it would not exist. What is the dimension?" Suli seized every opportunity to ask questions. She was very clear that if the Boundary Core didn't ask her for help, it wouldn't tell her so much explosive news out of kindness. You didn't inherit any memory about the undead clan. It seems that the bloodline of both sides who married with your parents was not simple. Otherwise, they would not suppress each other, so that you couldn't get the memory of any of them. So deceitful. Suli felt helpless and surprised. Since it was difficult for the undead clan to die out, was the vitality of a clan as powerful as the undead clan also strong enough? That was to say, her parents were probably still alive, but she didn't know where they were. The dimension is not difficult for you to understand. You have entered the reincarnation mirror, which is the prototype of a dimensional treasure. You are one dimension lower in the mirror, and people outside the mirror can manipulate it at will. For me, all the creatures in the entire Chimo circle belong to me. I created them, so naturally, I am one dimension higher than them. Suli didn't really understand it, but it didn't prevent her from seeing the attitude of the human clan, like Qi Tian. Just like humans to livestock to ants? Yes. Undead clan, you are very smart, and we have hope to cooperate. The boundary core transmitted his thoughts. I will help you to make your strength reach the level of the great emperor in the human clan's mouth. At that time, you will have the strength to get rid of the parasites left in the dead zone. Those parasites are also a great tonic for you. The talents of the Dead Zone clan and the Undead clan don't conflict. Suli nodded, but she didn't feel happy at all. After listening to the words of the boundary core, she had too many doubts in her heart to be solved, and the most important one was still one point. How are you going to make me become the great emperor? How can I guarantee that you won't kill me after you get rid of the parasites? Chapter 660. Remember in 1 second. 800 mail sign small / say net wonderful pop-up window free reading. In the blue space, the spherical boundary core suddenly stopped rotating. At the same time in the outside world also stopped flowing at this moment. Fortunately, the stagnation time was very short, and no one noticed it except Chitian. What happened? Chitian frowned. Because of the previous promise, he didn't go into the Earth's core to find out. You are really a descendant of the Undead clan. Even if you see the hope I give you in a desperate situation, you are still calm, unlike a native. The thought from the boundary core suddenly became much clearer, as if a person suddenly appeared and whispered in Su Li's ear. Su Li's forehead was covered with cold sweat, but she smiled. I can't do a losing business. Either we die together, or you can think of a way to make the best of both worlds, and let me think about it. After these words, Su Li's 5 senses returned, and she left the boundary core without saying anything. A gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall. A human face appeared on the surface of the boundary core. Undead clan, I admire your wisdom. We can cooperate equally. Su Li looked indifferent. The premise of equal cooperation is equal information. I am infected by the dead zone, and I can't interfere with the operation of Chimo Circle. The human face showed a helpless expression. I can tell you everything I know in exchange for trust. In the space of the boundary core, there was a long silence. Su Li's eyes flashed. She knew that every word she was going to ask next had a price, so she must be cautious. The human face was not in a hurry and waited silently. She looked down on Su Li before, intending to bombard Su Li with a lot of information to entice Su Li to become her agent of the natural law. That would indeed make Su Li's strength rise to the level of the great emperor, but it meant that Su Li would become her puppet without her own consciousness and couldn't leave Chimo Circle. She would be her slave forever. Such a ceremony needed to be voluntary, otherwise it would not succeed. Su Li's sobriety was beyond her expectation. She had no choice but to cooperate. As for why she didn't choose Chitian to become the agent of the natural law, they were in different dimensions. Just like domestic animals, how could they bear the infusion of the intelligence of a human clan? Chitian's life level was too low. When time passed quietly for 2 hours, Su Li took a deep breath and finally asked the first question. How can we eliminate BIMO? She purposely asked very general questions. The broader the question, the more information she could get from the Realm Core. Boundary Core saw through Su Li's mind at a glance, but her plan failed before. At this moment, she wanted to show her sincerity. So, she could only suppress the discomfort in her heart and said, I don't know much about White Devil. The only thing I can be sure of is that the sudden disappearance of the heavenly axiom I nurtured all those years ago is very likely related to him. Su Li looked serious. In other words, he is the initiator of the destruction of Chimo Circle. Not bad. Realm Core's eyes became complicated. I lost contact with my elder sister. It is very likely that she was deceived and suppressed by White Demon. White Demon was able to control the natural law of Qingshui Circle. Apocalyptic Thunderdoom is not strong in the level of immortals, but for Ling Qingshui, who was seriously injured at that time, there was no way to resist it. All living beings existed for the sake of benefits. White Devil is no exception. Over the years, I have been thinking about his purpose, but I still can't understand it. It is likely to involve something at a higher level, Even I can't understand it. Fortunately, his strength is not strong, so you still have a chance. I cannot help you much, but it is what you need most." As soon as he finished speaking, the blue pneuma began to surge and build a starlight portal. Su Li's pupils shrank slightly. "Chuangxing Path." "Yes." The voice of Boundary Core echoed in the space, and the blue pneuma fluttered like willow catkins. "Maybe you don't understand, but the founder of Chuangxing Path is the supreme of all realms. Your realm is stuck at the most critical step. If you can come back successfully, your strength will inevitably rise a lot. But with me, you can be lucky enough to get more in Chuangxing Path." The superposition of the luck of the two realms, Su Li was thinking, but she did not recklessly enter the starlight portal. "I spent a full 6 years in Chuangxing Path last time. Now I only have 1 year, or even less. Entering it is bound to be risky." The voice of Boundary Core was almost sighing. "I can't guarantee that you can come back in time, but if you don't give it a try, you are not the opponent of White Devil. The secret skill he mastered is far more than yours. You can only break all skills by force. Even the secret skill you have mastered is not as much as him." "Yes," Boundary Core admitted frankly. Su Li couldn't help but think about the life level of White Devil. White Devil came from the starry sky. Since he mastered more profound knowledge than Boundary Core, did it mean that White Devil was also a higher life level? While thinking, Su Li put her hands behind her back and looked up. "Before Chuangxing Path, I need to make some preparations. If you think it over, you can come here again. The starlight portal will always remain open." After saying this, the face on the surface of Boundary Core disappeared and returned to its normal state. Su Li gently took a breath, hid her emotions, and turned to rush out of the Earth's core. Chi Tian heard the movement and approached. He couldn't help but be stunned when he met Su Li. "Why did you come out?" "I need a lot of dead zone blackstones." Su Li was not polite at all. She stared at Chi Tian and said in a deep voice, "The more the better, the faster the better." Chi Tian was shocked by her momentum. Although he was curious about what she knew from Boundary Core in such a short time, he didn't ask and turned to prepare. After a while, a specially cleared hall was piled up with black stones. It was Bing Feng, who had contact with Su Li in Hemp Camp, who was in charge of this matter. "Grand Elder Su, Boundary Lord said that you can do your best. All the martial kings of Qiansheng Camp and Baiqing Camp have been dispatched. If we can't collect as fast as you, Boundary Lord will take action in person," Bing Feng said with a smile. Su Li nodded and turned around. Her small figure was soon submerged in the black stones. Grand Elder Su is really strange. Why does she have a special preference for the dead zone blackstones? Does she want to rely on devouring the dead zone to save my Chimo circle? It's too exaggerated. Bing Feng was puzzled. Due to the limitation of his realm, he was destined not to understand the reason. He turned around and was about to collect more blackstones. Suddenly, there was an explosion behind him. He looked back in astonishment and saw that slim figure reappeared in the white stone powder all over the sky. In just a short span of a few breaths, all the blackstones had been absorbed. Bing Feng swallowed hard. The scene in front of him blurred. Seeing Su Li's questioning expression, he nodded quickly. "I'm going to find Boundary Lord now." Seeing Bing Feng leaving in a hurry, Su Li looked down at her hands thoughtfully. After catalyzing the 2 black lotus magic swords, her speed of absorbing the energy of the dead zone increased by 100 times. Even she didn't expect that. So, it can save a lot of time. Su Li's eyes were clear. Was it the effect of fate in the unseen world? "Here, you can be lucky enough," Su Li recalled what the Boundary Core said. "No, this is the rule of the dead zone. It's the talent of the body of Evil Ghost. It has nothing to do with the Boundary Core." Su Li's eyes became clear again. She looked up at the door of the hall and saw Chi Tian coming in person. Looking at the stone powder all over the hall, he was amazed. Then he touched the universe ring, and black stones poured out continuously. Soon, the whole hall was filled again. "I have told all the martial kings. You don't have to worry." Chi Tian's voice was low and firm. Su Li looked at him and suddenly felt pity for him, but she didn't show it on the surface. She said softly, "Thank you. The study was dotted with spiritual flowers that were not easy to cultivate. The fragrance was not strong, but refreshing. But Bai Xiao, who was sitting in the room at this moment, frowned slightly. Looking at the detailed information sent by Tiny Attic from all the major regions, he felt a slight pain between his eyebrows. The purpose of White Demon was so obscure that he had no way to know it. He could only infer the next action of the Fate Palace with a large amount of information. Therefore, all the unusual intelligence in the 81 large regions of Qingshui Circle was presented to his desk, but he obviously overestimated his processing speed. Seeing the jade slips piled up like a mountain on his desk, he could only sigh secretly and continue to work hard. Fortunately, after several days of sleepless efforts, he finally saw some results, so he didn't have self-doubt. He stretched his body and cleared a clean area on the desk. Then he accurately picked out a jade slip from a pile of jade slips and put it in the first one. Several mortal villages outside the cities of Juli region have been destroyed inexplicably. It is suspected that there are demons. Mortals were fragile. In a cultivation circle, they were like mayflies and could be easily destroyed. Such information in the files of Tiny Attic was normal, but Bai Xiao obviously didn't think so at this moment. He picked out the second and third jade slips, which recorded similar accidents in which the mortals' clans, villages, and cities were destroyed. Bai Xiao didn't stop until the cleared area was filled with jade slips, looking solemn. The interval between the submission of these jade slips was no more than 2 days. In just 2 days, on average, more than 5 mortal settlements were destroyed in each major region. The explanation that there are demons doesn't work anymore. Bai Xiao tapped on the table with his fingertips. In today's cultivation era, it was not suitable for demons to survive. Although there were more or less 1 or 2 mighty demons in each major region, mighty demons would not secretly eat mortals. Their appetites were not so low. Bai Xiao thought and pinched his knuckles, trying to get enlightenment through astrology divination. But this time, there was nothing but chaos, and he saw nothing. Since Bai Xiao knew that someone was messing up his plan, how could he not take precautions? Bai Xiao was not surprised. The crisis that Hua Yin sensed last time was resolved, which showed that he took the right step. All the primers were hidden in the reincarnation mirror by him, and the reincarnation mirror was also covered by astrology. Even if Bai Xiao mastered the rules, he couldn't send the thunder test. For thousands of years, Bai Xiao almost never took action except for the fight with Ling Qingshui. The next step was likely to be to tamper with the rules of natural law. What else could he use as a primer to send the thunder test? Bai Xiao thought about it, and his pupils suddenly shrank when he saw the jade slips on the table. Chapter 661. Senior Heavenly Star, why did you summon the Grand Elders of the 27 sects in such a hurry? Did something happen? Hua Yin came in a hurry. Bai Xiao didn't answer but asked, "Where are they?" Hua Yin nodded. "They're all in the main hall. Time is pressing. I'll explain it to you." Bai Xiao rubbed his eyebrows and walked quickly into the main hall. Then he saw the Grand Elders of the Holy Sects, including many familiar old friends. Although Xiang Hua's cultivation was not the strongest among the Grand Elders, he had saved the lives of the other 26 people. Therefore, he sat in the first seat on the left side of the main hall, while the seat opposite him was empty. There are 2 empty seats. Has Grand Elder Su returned? Xiang Hua couldn't help thinking. At this time, footsteps came from outside the hall. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a young man and sect master Hua Yin coming together. Seeing the young man's face, Xiang Hua's memory of his youth was quickly activated. He couldn't help but stand up and say in surprise, "Are you Senior Bai of Heavenly Star Valley?" "Senior Bai, you're still alive." Another person stood up with an excited look. Obviously, more than one person knew Bai Xiao. Although the others hadn't seen Bai Xiao before, Xiang Hua's words gave them enough hints. Was this man the most mysterious old ancestor of Tiny Attic? Sure enough, an Ai's sect strength was not without reason. Even a hidden existence like old ancestor Heavenly Star could see him. Bai Xiao was still anxious, but his tone was calm. "I called you here for an urgent matter." Not surprisingly, White Demon has already taken action. What? Everyone's expression changed slightly, and Xianghua was even more shocked. I've been paying attention to the Life Palace. They didn't have any obvious personnel movement. If even you could find out, White Demon would have died 10,000 years ago. Bai Xiu said in a low voice. He never likes to take action personally and often uses dirty tricks. If we find out, it will be too late. I've been collecting information recently and finally found something strange. Bai Xiu shared the information and told them his conjecture. As expected, the hall quieted down, leaving only the slightly heavy breathing of the half-emperors. Patriarch Phoenix stream-sighed. More or less, all of us have been harmed by the life parasite. We should be prepared for Devil Bai's methods. Senior Bai, if you have any ideas, just tell us. We'll do it. Looks like you've all guessed it. Bai Xiu swept his eyes over the crowd. If White Demon wants to continue to rely on the heavenly Tao to destroy us, he will need a prelude. Cultivators killing mortals is an excellent reason. Although I don't know how he can put the blame on us. We have to guard against it. How do we defend against this? Patriarch Phoenix Dream couldn't help but ask. They had no experience with the Tao of Heaven. My ancestor once said that the heavenly Tao might just be a tool. If it wants to punish someone, it must have a sufficient reason. If White Demon wants to give him a reason, then we'll deal with him at the source. Bai Xiu flicked his sleeve and threw out 28 jade slips, which automatically fell into everyone's hands. This secret technique is called the Heavenly Tao. After you cast it, all of your sex actions will be watched by the Heavenly Tao. If you do, then you do. If you don't, then you don't. At this point, Bai Xiu narrowed his eyes and revealed a meaningful smile. If White Demon hastily framed him, he will pay the price for his carelessness. All the Grand Elders looked at each other and then agreed loudly. In the next few days, Bai Xiu received the news of the massacre of mortals every day. There were too many mortals in the mortal cities, and the fate palaces could be chosen at will. He couldn't stop it even if he wanted to. He could only restrain his thoughts and wait patiently. Finally, one day, a person suddenly appeared in front of the gate of an ice sect. Facing the mountain gate covered in clouds and mist, she bowed slightly and lowered her head to call softly. Su Zipei of the Han sect is here to see the Lord of Ni sect. Su Zipei of Zihan sect is back at this time? Hearing the report, Huayan's beautiful eyes flashed with vigilance. She ordered softly, "Call the Lord of Zihan sect." Soon, the Lord of Zihan sect, who was dressed in the costume of a supervisor, came to the hall. He looked calm and said after saluting, "Lord, what can I do for you? Do you know where Su Zipei went after she left the sect?" Hearing Huayan's words, the calm look of the Lord of Zihan sect suddenly changed. Su Zipei, is she back? Just outside the main gate. Huayan didn't intend to hide it. She said while observing the reaction of the Lord of Zihan sect. To her surprise, after hearing this, the first reaction of the Lord of Zihan sect was not happy, but more like fear. What was he afraid of? It's good that she's back. It's good that she's back. The Lord of Zihan sect didn't know that he was exposed. He said with a smile, "I only know that she was later favored by a grand elder of a holy sect. People go to higher places, so I can't keep her. Later, I know that the holy sect she went to belongs to the Fate Palace. It's naturally good that she can come back alive." The strange reaction of the Lord of Zihan sect was noticed by Huayan. She pondered for a moment and transmitted the sound to Bai Xiu cautiously. Not long after, Bai Xiu's figure came out of the inner hall. When the Lord of Zihan sect saw him for the first time, he immediately showed a look of fear. He made a ho-ho sound, and his head swelled in a few seconds. Then with a bang, he exploded like a watermelon, and red and white blood scattered on the ground. Huayan waved her sleeves to block all the blood outside the shield. She frowned for a moment and ordered someone to clean it up. Seeing that Bai Xiu was still meditating, she couldn't help but ask, "Senior Bai, what's going on?" Bai Xiu frowned and shook his head. "It should be a kind of curse. This person has been cursed for a long time. After I arrived, he sensed the crisis of information exposure and self-destructed. Hua Yin couldn't help but gasp. There is such a terrible curse in the world. Is it the work of White Demon again? No, it's another person. Bai Xiu looked dignified and murmured, I clearly know her, but I have always ignored her existence. Thousand-faced witch. There was not one enemy, but two. Her curse was untraceable and sometimes even more terrible than white demons. He didn't think deeply, for fear of falling into the trap of thousand-faced witch. He looked up and said, It's been too long. Let Su Zipei come in. We can't let the messenger of white demon wait for too long. Huayan nodded and ordered. Not long after, Su Zipei, dressed in the saintess uniform of Zihan's sect, walked into the hall. Seeing that there was only Hua Yin in the hall, her expression relaxed a little. She stepped forward and bowed. Disciple Su Zipei pays respect to Lord. Hua Yin chuckled. Su Zipei, you are not a disciple of our sect. Why do you call yourself disciple? Su Zipei raised her chin slightly and said in a respectful tone, I was the saintess of Zihan's sect. Since Zihan's sect belongs to Ni sect, I am naturally a member of Ni sect. At this moment, I should come back to do my part for the sect. That's very good. Hua Yin clapped her hands gently. But what's the benefit for you? The conditions of our Ni sect are not as good as your life palace. What made you give up your life palace and surrender to the enemy? The smile on Su Zipei's face was slightly stiff. She secretly surrendered to the life palace. Only the most core disciples knew that she replaced Ling Xian and became the saintess of the Life Palace. How did I sect know it? Was there a spy in the Life Palace? It may also be a trick. It is indeed suspicious that I come at this moment. At this moment, Su Zipei thought a lot, but when she thought of the affirmative tone of Fate Ancestor, she quickly suppressed her panic and continued to say, It is pure nonsense to surrender to the Life Palace. In fact, I have been secretly investigating the situation of the Life Palace for this moment. If I can submit a certificate of allegiance, can I return to Ni sect? Hua Yan's eyes flickered. Senior Bai Xiu was so clever. Su Zipei really wanted to do everything possible to have a relationship with Ni sect. In this way, the sin of slaughtering mortals could be linked to Ni sect, and then the Thunderdoom would fall. In this process, Bai Mo just lost an insignificant pawn. It was really a good plan. Looking at Su Zipei's appearance, she was probably still in the dark, which was hateful and sad. A trace of pity flashed through her eyes, but she soon calmed down. According to the previous instructions of Bai Xiu, she nodded and said, I promise you, as long as the answer you give is valuable enough. What's wrong with letting you come back? Su Zipei heard the sentence she wanted to hear most, and she relaxed a lot. Master said that no matter whether the Lord of Ni sect fulfilled the promise or not, as long as there was this sentence, it would be done. She would be the greatest hero, and the position of the next palace lord would belong to her. Su Zipei took a deep breath. From the simplest beginning, from now on, she would fight for enough time for Master. In fact, among the top holy sects where the Life Palace belongs, the Lord of Shangtian Ancestral Temple has the lowest status. I don't know why, but the Lord of Shangtian Ancestral Temple can only be a breeze in the outside world. In front of Fate Ancestor, he is like a dog. Before Su Zipei finished speaking, she was waved by Hua Yin and forcibly interrupted, What you said is gossip at most, and it is not good for Ni sect at all. I will give you another chance to start again. Otherwise, you can leave now. Su Zipei's heart tightened, and she suddenly felt a sense of suffocation. Hua Yin looked very easy to talk to, but once she turned hostile, the sense of oppression she felt was no less than in front of Fate Ancestor. All this was naturally due to the secret method that Bai Xiu secretly used. In order to pry some useful information from Su Zipei, he also tried his best. Su Zipei wanted to show her sincerity, so Bai Mo couldn't do anything to her. This was a breakthrough, but the information revealed by Su Zipei might also be a smokescreen put by Bai Mo, and it needed to be carefully screened. At this time, Su Zipei finally adjusted her mentality and said again, The purpose of Fate Ancestor has nothing to do with dominating Qing Shui's circle. He seems to be born with a bottleneck and can't break through to Great Emperor, So he thought of another way, which is to use the life souls of all the talents in this circle to recast his foundation. This was the conversation she eavesdropped, but she couldn't care so much now. As long as she could control Hua Yin, these people would die soon. Who would know that she had leaked the secret? Hua Yin was really shocked by this information. In the unseen world, the rule of natural law operated on its own, and the thunder in the sky was faintly heard. But the thunder came quickly and left even faster. Before the ordinary disciples of Ni's sect could react, the sky cleared up again. In the White Palace, Bai Ming's smile froze on his face. Chapter 662. Phew. Bai Ming's face returned to calmness, looking at the vast mountains and rivers outside the palace. I have never suffered such a big loss except for Ling Qingxue. In the main hall of Ni's sect, Su Zipei froze in place. She didn't understand why the master, who always took everything into account, miscalculated this time. What about nature's punishment? She did everything the master ordered, but Ni's sect was still fine and not affected at all. Your information is really shocking. The pity in Hua Yan's eyes was no longer hidden. But how do you know that the news you heard from Mingzu is true? How do you know that he won't lie to you? He won't. Su Zipei was a mess and shook her head repeatedly. It can't be false. I eavesdropped on that news. Then how do you know if he deliberately let you eavesdrop and convey the wrong news to us? Hua Yin pointed to the top of her head. The thunder, just now, is the best proof. Even God doesn't believe you. How can I believe you? Please go back. Come on, see the guest out. Su Zipei was at a loss. At this moment, she just wanted to go back to the Life Palace and ask the master what went wrong so that she failed. Seeing her leave the hall in a hurry, Bai Xiu walked out of the dark and followed her from a distance, until she left the gate of Ni's sect and was suddenly struck into ashes by a lightning punishment in the sky. He confirmed his thoughts. He turned back with a smile on his face. In this confrontation, he had won. Except for Su Li, I can't believe that I will lose to others now. Bai Ming stood in front of the dot and laughed in a low voice. As he laughed, his eyes bloomed with dazzling light. My brother, you finally don't hide anymore? Ha ha, interesting. Lord, what should we do now? The Lord of Shengtian's shrine, who followed him, couldn't help but ask. Bai Ming smiled slightly and spat out a word, wait. Wait? The Lord of Shengtian's shrine was full of doubts. Then he saw Bai Ming turn around with silver light flashing in his eyes. Wait for the fish to fall into the net. That is a big fish. Seeing that he had a well-thought-out plan, the master of Shengtian's shrine was relieved. But when he thought that Su Zipei, the new saintess of the Life Palace, died in the blink of an eye in Eye Mountain, he felt a chill in his heart. A few days later, there was enough stone powder in the Divine Hall of Region Qi to build another Divine Hall. Out of boredom, Qi Tian actually used the stone powder to build a black stone hall on one side of his Divine Hall. As the stone powder increased, the hall gradually expanded. The Realm Lord is bored again. The Martial Kings whispered and couldn't help but discuss. Yeah, wasn't the temple built out of boredom? Now the corpse spirits in the dead zone have been solved by Grand Elder Su, and I can't go to Qingshui's circle. I'm also bored. While everyone was busy transmitting the sound, suddenly a loud noise came from the palace where Su Li was. Then many martial kings were stunned to see a huge black lotus suddenly blooming on the roof of the palace. Then the palace collapsed. Seeing this, Bing Feng couldn't help but praise, Realm Lord, you're so wise. You've already predicted that the palace would be destroyed when Su Yu's revered divine technique was completed. Everyone suddenly understood. I see. I'm short-sighted. You deserve to be the Realm Lord. Hearing the praise, Qi Tian's mouth twitched slightly. He really didn't think so much. Swish! A black light appeared behind him out of thin air and stabbed at him quickly. Qi Tian's expression changed slightly. His cold perception was extremely sharp, but he didn't step aside. Instead, he suddenly turned around and grabbed the black light. Puff! The black light passed through his palm, as if it didn't feel any obstacle, and went into the gate of the Divine Hall. Boom! Another palace collapsed, raising smoke and dust. Chi Tian didn't care about it. He just looked down at the blood hole in his palm, and his eyes were shining. Before Xian House, Su Li was just a seed with potential for him. But how long had it been? First, she broke the iron rule that the human clan couldn't improve their physical bodies except for immortal ascension. This time, the strength she showed was no less than his. Brother Chi Tian, please open the earth core again. The voice came from the collapsed palace, from far to near. When the last word was spoken, Su Li's graceful figure was already standing in front of him. With your strength, I made the right choice to go to the earth core again. Chi Tian laughed, and Su Li smiled politely. The two figures disappeared in an instant. Bing Feng looked at the two ruins in distress. The Realm Lord had rebuilt many immortal halls, so there was no need to build more. But the task of cleaning up the two ruins might fall on him. Su Li returned to the earth core. The face on the boundary core didn't appear, but the starry gate. Compared with the starry gate summoned by Su Li, the color of the starry gate summoned by the boundary core was thicker. Su Li didn't hesitate anymore. She stepped into the starry gate and disappeared. In a remote courtyard, a kind-looking woman was watering the vegetable field. A ray of warm sunlight passed through the window behind her and landed on the sickly girl on the bed. At a certain moment, the girl suddenly opened her eyes, and her eyes were bright. Su Li sat up and quickly recalled everything. After she stepped into the starry gate, she suddenly became another person. The test of the star path, Su Li was lost in thought. Suddenly, she heard the door open. Chun, are you awake? She quickly lay down again, closed her eyes, and controlled her breath. The woman saw that Su Li didn't move on the bed, but didn't leave the room. Instead, she walked to the window silently and reached out to touch Su Li's neck. Su Li only felt a layer of goosebumps on her back. This woman didn't mean well to her, but she was new here, so she didn't know what happened. She could only continue to pretend to sleep and secretly accumulate strength in case of accidents. But there was no strength in this body, so it was still a problem whether she could defeat the woman. The palm wind was silent, but extremely cold. In the blink of an eye, it was only an inch away from Su Li's neck. Then it stopped for a moment and slowly retracted. After a while, Su Li heard the sound of the door being closed. Su Li's thoughts became active, but she didn't open her eyes in case the woman was still observing her. It was also at this moment that a thought that did not belong to her came from the unseen world. It turns out that the owner of this body is called Duan Hongshun. Duan Hongshun. I seem to have heard this name somewhere. Su Li couldn't help recalling, and the scenes under her eyes quickly replayed. All of a sudden, her pupils shrank. A scene was enlarged in front of her. It was the first time she went to the star path. In the endless starry sky, the first line of words on the illusory ancient text like a list shone brightly in her memory. Star-Lord Duan Hongshun. Star-Lord Duan Hongshun. She remembered that she was called the third person of all times on the list, and the line above was the Lord of Kuiyu Palace, whom she had heard from Black Lotus many times. At that time, the name on the list was Kuiyu Star-Lord Lin Chun. Star-Lord Duan Hongshun. This name was even above Kuiyu Palace. Thinking of what the boundary core said, the one who created the star path was Duan Hongshun, the Star-Lord. This series of speculations made Su Li feel a little suffocated. The test of the star path, here let me enter Duan Hongshun's memory. Is this her childhood? And I want to achieve a certain condition to be considered to complete the test. As Su Li's thoughts kept jumping, the memory she received was close to complete. The mortal village of Duan Hongshun's childhood was destroyed by practitioners overnight. Because of her quick-witted father, she survived and became the adopted daughter of the Jin family, an aristocratic family in Dragon City. But the Jin family adopted her not because the head of the Jin family was kind. She suspected that her adoptive mother believed that she was the orphan of that village. And after such a thrilling experience, Su Li didn't need to doubt anymore. A female practitioner in Jindan realm dressed as an ordinary family woman, which was a bit suspicious. The mortal village was destroyed, but the practitioners are still tracking the orphan. Something must be coveted. Suli gently held the black stone hanging in her arms with both hands. Was this the treasure? Suli searched through her memory. The stone was the only thing that Duan Hongxian brought from the village in her childhood. If she was right, if she could get rid of this woman, become stronger, and even track down the murderer who destroyed the village, she would complete the test. Finally, figuring out the clue, Suli opened her eyes and frowned again. She was sure to defeat the strong as the weak, but it would take a lot of time. And what she lacked most was time. Senior, thanks to your wonderful foresight, the plan of White Demon was ruined. It's the first time for me to see White Demon being defeated. It's so cool. In the hall of the Ni sect, the grand elders of the 27 holy sects were all present, and they all praised Bai Xiao. Hua Yin smiled and watched quietly, and she looked more relaxed. Only Bai Xiao's expression remained indifferent with a solemn expression. He knew how powerful White Demon was. Although he gained the upper hand this time, White Demon just lost a small chess piece, which was not a big deal. He didn't know the real purpose of White Demon, so he couldn't figure out what to do next. Senior Bai. Xiang Hua got up and saluted, and asked respectfully, since the grand elders of hundreds of holy sects in charge of the Fate Palace were seriously injured by Grand Elder Su in the Battle of Xian House, and their poisonous life insect was also destroyed by Grand Elder Su, the Fate Palace only knows how to play dirty tricks. The Life Palace is holed up and only knows how to play dirty tricks. Now that we've exposed his scheme, if we gather all the cultivators to attack the Life Palace, we'll definitely win. His eyes were burning, and there was a strong desire to fight. Senior, it's time to fight. Bai Xiao frowned slightly and glanced at others. They were all eager to fight. They had been oppressed by the Fate Palace for thousands of years, and they needed a victory to be proud. But could they really fight? White Demon was astute. Except for more than 100 grand elders of holy sects, was there really no other help? In the face of many expectant eyes, he took a deep breath and said, "To be cautious, I will do another divination. Don't be impatient." Xiang Hua nodded quickly when he heard the words, "Senior Bai's divination is unparalleled." "Thank you." Others echoed and praised him. They didn't know astrology, so they didn't realize what it meant for Bai Xiao to do divination in the state of astrology. Only Hua Yin, who was sitting quietly, frowned slightly and wanted to say something. "Sect Master Hua, can I trouble you to prepare the items on the jade slip in a secluded secret room?" Hua Yin took the jade slip handed by Bai Xiao and nodded gently. "Thanks to the gift from the grand elders of the 27 sects, the sect warehouse has them. I will prepare them now." Chapter 663. Remember in 1 second. 800 mail sign, /say, net wonderful pop-up window, free reading. Hua Yin left the hall, and Bai Xiao also got up to prepare. The grand elders of various sects looked at each other for a moment, and then closed their eyes to rest. Attacking the Life Palace was the most important thing now. They would rather wait for the result here. No one left. In the quiet room, the materials for divination requested by Bai Xiao were soon ready. Hua Yin stood aside and quietly watched Bai Xiao burn the incense devoutly. When Bai Xiao got up, she finally couldn't help but ask, "Does divination affect you?" Bai Xiao paused for a moment, then looked up and smiled. "Divination is to calculate the mysteries of heaven. It's disrespectful. Even if it's a mortal's divination, it will damage his fate, let alone the cultivation circle. But for me at the moment, it doesn't matter whether it affects me or not. But I can see that you are hesitating." Hua Yan's eyes flashed. "What are you worried about?" Bai Xiao was slightly stunned, and then he was surprised. He looked Hua Yan up and down. "It turns out that you are practicing the ancient sect, Hua Tao? I thought this sect had been lost for a long time, but I didn't expect that there are still descendants in the world. No, Wonder and I sect is difficult to penetrate. In front of Hua Tao, even White Demon can't panic. I just can't lie." Hua Yin smiled helplessly. "I'm too weak to help. Don't belittle yourself." Bai Xiao shook his head and chuckled. "If you weren't the Lord, I should let you enter the reincarnation mirror. The power of Hua Tao is far beyond your imagination. Although you were weak before becoming an immortal, your strength may not be less than Su Jiuzhou's after becoming an immortal. Su Jiuzhou is an evildoer, but only before becoming an immortal. After becoming an immortal, everything has to be recalculated. Bai Xiu said this and shook his head embarrassedly. In this state, I can naturally know a lot, so I can't help but say more. Hua Yin covered her mouth and chuckled. She bowed. Thank you for your encouragement, senior. I won't bother you anymore. As she said, Hua Yin turned and left the quiet room, and the door slowly closed. The smile on Bai Xiu's face faded, and he took a light breath, lit the spiritual candle, and slowly formed a seal with his slender hands. Specks of starlight gradually appeared, dyeing the white candle flame light blue, dark blue, until the quiet room became a starry sky. Bai Xiu leaned back, and countless images began to appear. The river of time contained tens of thousands of possibilities. His eyes rapidly turned, and he soon found the scene after choosing to fight. It was a ruin. From the remains of the palace, Bai Xiu could tell at a glance that it was not the building of an ice sect, but it was not the life palace either. On top of the wreckage, two blurry shadows flickered continuously. Drops of dark red blood fell from between the two of them and dyed the sect mark on the wreckage red. When Bai Xiu saw the sect mark, his state of mind instantly fluctuated and the image collapsed. When his consciousness returned to the quiet room, Bai Xiu gasped for breath and carefully recalled the scene just now, muttering to himself, "Impossible! Why would it involve?" He composed himself and communicated with the starry sky again, entering the scene of choosing not to start a war. Countless scenes flashed before his eyes and then stopped at a certain moment. The dark red sky was filled with wreckage and ruins. The same white shadows, the same blood, and the same sect imprints. The scene that appeared was exactly the same as when he chose not to fight. Hastily ending the star technique, Bai Xiu's face turned extremely ugly. In other words, whether he chose to fight or not, the result would be the same. Why was it like this? If the decision of this war was not up to him, then who? Bai Xiu closed his eyes gently, calmed down, and opened the door of the secret room. When Hua Yin came up, he said firmly, "Tian's sect, I need any information about Tian's sect immediately." Hua Yin didn't know why, but she immediately flew away. Not long after, Su Mu and Su Yang were found by Hua Yin. These two were spies of Tian's sect. They know a lot about Tian's sect, and they're very happy to help us. Bai Xiu nodded. A trace of worry flashed in Hua Yan's eyes. Since Bai Xiu came out of the divination, he had been so serious. What did he see? Are you the master behind Tiny Attic? Su Yang put his head behind his hands and asked lazily. After many years, his temperament was the same as before, but his cultivation had reached the early stage of nature's test. His progress was extraordinary. Su Mu, who was silent on the side, also reached the early stage of nature's test. Bai Xiu's eyes flashed, and then he frowned slightly. His words shocked the two. You're not geniuses. Has your talent been forcibly tampered with? Su Yang's expression changed a little, and he forced a smile. You are really sharp-eyed. This is the first time we meet, but we have been seen through by you. I'm not your brother. Su Mu glanced at Su Yang coldly and said lightly. Then he bowed to Bai Xiu. Senior, what do you want to know? I will tell you everything I know. Bai Xiu looked at the two people who were at odds with each other thoughtfully. After thinking for a moment, he asked, Who gave you your talent? Su Mu frowned and said the name he didn't want to recall the most. Feng Mi, the master of the skill hall. Skill hall? Bai Xiu was surprised and lost in thought. No one in Qing Shui Circle knew more than him about the news of Qing Shui Palace in the past. After Qing Shui Circle was destroyed, the subsidiary halls of Qing Shui Palace did not disappear. Instead, they became stronger and stronger. After tens of thousands of years of development, they became the peak of Four Saints sect today. As for Shangtian Shrine, he hadn't found out which subsidiary it was. Bai Mo covered up too many details for it, so he couldn't infer. The Chu family of Anhui Valley was developed from the Poison Hall of Qingshui Palace. The Yin family of Huangxing Palace was also a subsidiary of Qingshui Palace. Because there were many female practitioners, they had many marriages with Qingshui Palace. In those days, they were in charge of the Shang Hall and the Star Hall. Most of their deduction skills were taught by him. Now, they became the minions of Bai Mo, which was really ridiculous. As for the Fong family of Tian's sect, Bai Xiu had always believed that it was a branch of the Instrument Hall. He didn't expect that they had secretly taken in the Skill Hall. The Instrument Hall and the Skill Hall were the two most powerful halls of Qingshui Palace. Now, they were combined into one, so they had all kinds of ideas. How much did Fong Yuan know about the secrets of Tian's sect? Bai Xiu temporarily suppressed his speculation in his heart, and then said, "Did Tian's sect kill innocent people indiscriminately? How unjust were they?" "Yes," Su Yang almost blurted out. "In order to create people with unparalleled talent, many ordinary disciples died in the Skill Hall for no reason. Does this kind of sin count as killing innocent people indiscriminately?" Bai Xiu's heart sank, but he immediately nodded, yes. It made sense that the Sky River sect had been destroyed by the lightning tribulation. The Sky River sect had done this for many years. If White Devil wanted to, he could destroy it at any time. No wonder White Devil didn't care about the Sky River sect at all. Bai Xiu, who had vaguely speculated some clues, felt even more depressed. With the foundation of Tian's sect, it should have been a help to destroy the Life Palace, but now I heard it from my sister. Su Mu said to himself, regardless of whether Bai Xiu was listening or not, in order to overthrow the Life Palace, Tian's sect once wanted to create an evildoer, but the Skill Hall had a limit, so the plan failed. In desperation, they had to turn their attention to the Instrument Hall, but I don't know the plan of the Instrument Hall. Hearing this, Bai Xiu suddenly felt that the doubts in his heart were solved. He couldn't help but ask, "Where is your sister now? If you know the plan of the Instrument Hall, maybe she's dead." Su Mu's voice was calm and dull, but his eyes were red. "A long time ago, in order to save us, she died in the hands of Fong Mi. She was the first disciple of Fong Mi." Su Yang turned his head and added in a low voice, "And we are just her attendants." Bai Xiu was stunned for a moment and was silent. No wonder that the Tianhe sect had always been friendly to the Ni sect on the surface, but once they talked about formal cooperation, they always avoided it. Only Fong Yuan was in the Ni sect, but he never stood in the position of the Tianhe sect and made any decision. He dared to do such a disobedient thing, so he was by no means an ordinary person. Although Fong Yuan was not the Holy Son, he could not make any decisions in Tianhe's sect, and he even had no right to speak. All this could be explained. Thinking of this, Bai Xiu was full of complex emotions and finally sighed. After a while, Bai Xiu walked slowly in the hall of Ni sect. He looked up and saw 27 pairs of expectant and inquiring eyes, and he felt it difficult to walk. Next, every word he said would be related to success or failure, and everyone's life and death. He sighed and said in a low voice, "Whether we start the war or not, our odds of winning are like a drop in the ocean, extremely slim. I still don't understand what Bai Mo's purpose is. Everything I say next could be wrong, and I could go down in history with infamy. But even so, I have to say it. Tianhe sect is the key to this war. In a month at most, Tianhe sect will be in ruins." Everyone's expressions flickered. They had all seen the Tianhe sect's ambiguous attitude before. So how could they be willing to risk their lives for the Tianhe sect? "I believe you all understand that we can't afford to lose any ally now." Bai Xiu glanced at the crowd solemnly. "Send troops to Tianhe region immediately. Maybe I can resolve the crisis before the war." Since Senior Bai has said so, Xianghua was the first to stand up. "Holy Sect of Wind Thunder Sect will fight with you. Holy Snow Sect will also send troops. Phoenix Dream Sect will fight." Fight! Seeing the grand elders of holy sects stand up one by one, Huang Yin was so excited that she couldn't help smiling. Who could have thought that Li, who fought alone in the beginning, would gather such a huge force? Bai Xiu nodded to the people who stood up, but there was still no smile on his face. Although it was only intuition, He always felt that Bai Mo's purpose was not as simple as destroying Tiana's sect. He could have destroyed Tiana's sect long ago. Why did he choose this time? The picture of blood flowing like a river kept appearing in front of him. Bai Xiu felt very bad. He faintly felt that he had made a wrong decision, but he couldn't see what was wrong. Chapter 664. 34 Chinese Net. In 1 second, wonderful pop-up window, free reading. When the Ni sect gathered the 27 holy sects to go to the Tianhe sect, several days had passed in the world of Chuangxing Path. Su Li gradually figured out the life pattern of her adoptive mother and Duan Hongqian in their childhood. The Jin family was rich, but this small yard seemed to be forgotten by the Jin family. They lived a poor mortal life. Today was the day when she routinely went to the market to return the extra vegetables. It was also the only day when she was free every month. Her adoptive mother didn't seem to worry that she would get lost and let her go alone every time. Su Li guessed that her adoptive mother was likely to take this opportunity to observe her, so she didn't intend to show any abnormality. The Jin family seemed to be the top family in Fonglong City. Its mansion occupied an excellent location. Su Li saw the archway of the market not long after she went out. Rui Lane. She got information about this lane from the memory of Duan Hongqian in her childhood. It seemed to have a great origin, and the commission for trading was not much. Both mortals and practitioners liked to trade in the Rui Lane. The Rui Lane was divided into the East Lane and the West Lane, which were clearly separated by a red line on the ground. Su Li came to her stall and sat down according to her memory. She lined up the fresh vegetables in the cage and put the price on them. 2 copper coins for a bundle of vegetables. Her price was low in the whole market. In addition, the vegetables were extremely fresh, so she sold them very quickly every time. Her adoptive mother didn't care how much she sold them. For cultivators, what could a few copper coins do? She just took this opportunity to observe whether Su Li was abnormal. In just half an hour, the vegetable cage was empty, and Su Li got 60 copper coins. She strung the copper coins and took out 2 of them. Then she found the supervisor who was taking a nap on the chair. "Lord, I'm here to pay the commission." Su Li spread out her palm. Before she reacted, the 2 copper coins were taken away. The supervisor of the market didn't raise his head and wave his hand impatiently. "How many times have I told you? Don't bother me if you don't get 1 tael of silver." "Got it." Su Li responded obediently and left quickly. The direction of her departure was not the small yard, but the lively market. Children should be playful. If she went back to the yard immediately, her adoptive mother would feel strange. Su Li bought a skewer of sugar-coated haws with the copper coins in her hand. She took a bite of hawthorn and strolled with the gourd skewer. Seeing this scene, disappointment flashed in the eyes of his adoptive mother, who had been observing in the dark. She turned around and left. She had had enough. Give her another year. If there are no abnormalities, his foster mother's eyes were filled with killing intent. She let out a cold snort and quickened her pace, her figure disappearing into the crowd. Su Li wandered aimlessly, but she was still thinking about the possibility of solving the situation quickly. Her cultivation had been stripped away the moment she entered this illusory realm. She was now a weak little girl who couldn't even defeat a strong adult. Using brute force to break out of this situation was not within his consideration. In that case, he could only fight with his wits. Fortunately, after her observation these days, she found that the cultivation system in this dreamland was similar to that in Qingshui Circle. Although practitioners in Jindan realm were strong, they were not without weaknesses. She couldn't reach the nascent soul realm, but as long as she could destroy her adoptive mother's vital parts, she might be able to kill her. But was his adoptive mother the only enemy? She couldn't be sure. For her, as long as her adoptive mother reacted for a moment, she could be crushed to death with 1 finger. Besides, no matter how strong the physical body of Jindan realm was, it was impossible for her to break through it with bare hands. She needed to prepare special fatal means and timing. Su Li's heart was heavy. Then she took a deep breath and calmed herself down. At this moment, She needed to be calmer than usual, patiently waiting for the opportunity. Old Ancestor Tianxing, what's the matter? In the main hall of Tian's sect, the lord of the sect sat at the top. Feng Mu looked calm under his throne, but his heart was full of ups and downs. I don't deserve your honor. Bai Xiu shook his head and smiled. I don't like those who abandon the old masters and set up their own sections. If I hadn't predicted that your sect will be destroyed, I wouldn't have come here. Old Ancestor Tianxing, I respect you as a senior. Hearing this, the lord of Tian's sect lost his smile and looked cold. But you have to be respectful. Why can't I tell the truth? Bai Xiu's attitude didn't change at all, and his starry eyes were also cold. On the way here, I have been thinking about what I missed. Now I finally understand how a young man like you can lead the medium of witchcraft. Where is Feng Huaji? You. Hearing this, the lord of Tian's sect's expression changed dramatically. Feng Mu, who was standing aside, was at a loss. Medium of witchcraft? Feng Huaji, wasn't he the founder of Tian's sect? According to what old ancestor Tianxing said, the founder was still alive? Seeing the reaction of the lord of Tian's sect, the grand elders of the holy sects who came with him understood and all looked cold. Tian's sect really harbors evil intentions. Our Phoenix Dream sect has always admired your sect, but I didn't expect that we were wrong. The pressure from 27 grand elders of the holy sects was so great that when the lord of Tian's sect was in a panic, another old voice suddenly sounded in the main hall. Ha! As expected, at this time, nothing can be hidden from Tianxing Valley. Why are you angry with the junior? Miao He, bring him to see me. The lord of Tian's sect immediately breathed a sigh of relief and smiled again. He descended from the throne and turned a blind eye to Feng Mu's question. He just looked at Bai Xiu and said with a smile, Senior, please come with me. Bai Xiu asked the other grand elders of the holy sects to wait here and left the main hall alone. Feng Mu stared blankly at the back of the two, pursing his lips. Sure enough, my elder brother is hiding something from me. I was right that time. My elder brother came back. Uncle Chun, I don't understand what. The answer in his mind rang in time. He is probably protecting you. Sometimes it's not good to know too much. The truth is often the most unacceptable. In the dark hall, the blood-red veins flickered. Bai Xiu walked slowly into the hall and saw the black sarcophagus. After a moment of silence, he suddenly laughed. I didn't expect that I would see you again after more than 10,000 years. I still have 1 year left, but it seems that you are in a worse situation than me. Haha, Bai Xiu. A sneer came out of the black coffin. You are not qualified to criticize me. If it weren't for your brother, maybe the palace master wouldn't have died. Although you don't say it, you are atoning for your sins, right? Bai Xiu looked sullen. What about you, senior? Is it right for you to transform into a demon and want to refine an evildoer? I have never said that I represent the right path. That's just a hat imposed by the outside practitioners. The black coffin said quietly, An evildoer is too powerful and difficult to refine. The highest achievement of the secret skill of blood replacement is only Feng Yuan, and the second is Feng Mu. The blood of the two brothers returned to the ancient times. When they were born, they absorbed nearly half of the talents here, but they failed to open the door of evildoers. Bai Xiu's pupils shrank suddenly, and he couldn't help but step back a few steps. His face was full of horror. However, you are really crazy to experiment with your own children. I am not crazy, but sometimes if you want to get something, you must pay a sufficient price. The voice in the black coffin was calm. Although they failed, these two children are indeed the most dazzling geniuses of the Feng family. I bear all the negative karma, and they only need to enjoy the fruits of victory. But if they know that their talents are filled with the lives of countless people, are you sure they won't go crazy? Bai Xiu's voice was sad. If you bear the negative karma, how can they pass the test of their state of mind? You seem to have misunderstood something. The black coffin was silent for a moment and suddenly chuckled. I never want to hide it. Feng Yuan has always known it, including here. Before he entered the reincarnation mirror, he was a frequent visitor. What? Bai Xiu's face changed instantly, and Feng Yuan's reticent face suddenly became a little distorted. Yes, but I don't know what stimulated him in the reincarnation mirror, and he even wanted to leave the sect. I can only tell him that if he left, I would shift the focus of training to his brother. So, he stayed. Feng Huaji's tone was light, as if he was threatening two strangers, not his own children. Even so, Feng Yuan's cultivation progress still can't satisfy me. I let him go out to find his own chance, and turn my attention to the instrument hall. Just now, my new spiritual weapon has been successfully studied. Crack! A crisp sound rang in Bai Xiu's ears, and the black coffin opened a gap. Bai Xiu's face suddenly turned pale, and he was about to step forward to stop it, but he heard his knees plop on the ground, and he couldn't stand up. Crack, crack, crack! Boom! The cracks in the black coffin burst open at an unimaginable speed, and then a skinny white-robed elder jumped out of the black coffin and stood beside him lightly. Qinqing Valley, you witnessed the destruction of Qingshui Palace. Now, I allow you to continue to witness how I, Feng Huaji, destroy the Life Palace. Boom! Feng Huaji waved his sleeves, and the stone hall suddenly exploded, turning into countless spots of spiritual light. They followed the dense, bloody veins underground and wanted to spread to the whole Qingshui circle. Bai Su knelt on the only intact slate, his body trembling and his face filled with horror. At this moment, he finally understood why, no matter how he calculated, he always saw the destruction of Tian's sect. Feng Huaji, became a great emperor in these 10,000 years. How could he resist the great emperor's decision? In an instant, the whole Qingshui circle was raging, and dark clouds were gathering. What happened? Many grand elders waiting in the hall only heard an explosion, and then saw the outside world suddenly darkened, and lightning flashed among the dark clouds. Oh no! Senior White must have failed. What should we do? As soon as the voice of Ancestor Phoenix stream died down, she saw the dense, bloody veins on the ground lit up. Standing on it, she felt that there seemed to be something extra in her body, but she couldn't tell what it was. Feng Mu stared at the veins on the ground. Suddenly, he bent over and vomited blood, which soaked into the bloody veins and flowed away. Seeing this, Xiang Hua's pupils shrank, and he flashed to help Feng Mu, who was lying on the ground. What's wrong with you? Feng Mu shook his head blankly. It's just a little disgusting. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and saw the question in each other's eyes. Xiang Hua looked up at the sky outside, frowning. What on earth happened? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.